Story 1.
My wife cheated for 24 years, so I exposed her infidelity with a live-streamed revenge event. Once I was blissfully unaware and content because I thought my marriage was strong. However, reality shattered my illusions when I discovered that my wife, Dunya, was unfaithful and deceptive. I'm John Miller, but my friends call me Jay. I'm dedicated to physical training, spending 5 days a week at the gym. Standing at 6 feet 3 inches tall and weighing 192 lbs, I prioritize self-care. 8 years ago, I made a bold choice to leave the corporate world and start my own successful company. Meanwhile, Dunya continues to work for a well-known company, one of the 50 largest. She has dedicated an impressive 24 years to the same company, starting as an OT analyst a month after our wedding. About 5 years ago, she transitioned to a training unit instructor to keep up with evolving technology. Her job requires attending at least 20 days of educational programs annually. At 46, Dunya looks stunning at 5 feet 8 inches tall and 118 lbs. She doesn't fit the expectations for a mother of two. Each morning, she joins 6 other women from our neighborhood for a challenging 6-mile run at dawn. Now, our 22-year-old daughter Emily proudly graduates from Florida State University. Following her mother's path, she became a dedicated first-grade teacher in Naples. Running is a family activity, with Emily joining her mother's running group at 14. I'm delighted she appreciates the beer I brew, my hobby, and even joined a beer club in Naples, which I happily attend with her whenever possible. Our 21-year-old son, Kent, is a recent graduate of the University of Florida, passionate about continuing his education. Although he aspires to work in my business, I've made it clear he must gain 5 years of corporate America experience first. I believe real-world experience is crucial for his growth. My wife dislikes beer and finds its aroma unpleasant. In our home, I strategically plan my beer brewing during her trips, like her current one to Dallas, giving me the perfect opportunity to craft a refined English brown ale. Life seemed to have peaked, but little did I know significant changes were on the horizon. Last Wednesday at 8:30 p.m., Bobby, a member of my beer club, asked if I could pick him up from the airport. Without hesitation, I agreed. While waiting at the baggage claim, I noticed 3 people who turned out to be colleagues of Dunya's. Curiosity led me to wonder why Dunya wasn't among them. I called her on the service line, an unusual move, as I usually contact her on her personal mobile phone. When I called Dunya's office, her answering machine informed me that she would be out of the Dallas office until Wednesday teaching classes. She mentioned that she wouldn't be home on Thursday and Friday and instructed me to leave a message, with a promise to return calls on Monday. Approaching Bobby, I explained my confusion, and he suggested I talk to Steve, a fellow member of our beer club and a detective in the local police. Deciding to address the situation, I called Dunya. During our conversation, I conveyed a desire to hear her voice. In response, she expressed anticipation for the moment when she could hug me. She mentioned that her Friday flight should depart early and that she was looking forward to falling asleep in my loving arms. I asked if she could come, and she replied affirmatively, stating that she had to stay and fulfill her duties. She emphasized that it would be unfair to neglect them and reassured me of her love, mentioning that she would see me on Friday. The revelation that this was the first time Dunya had cheated on me was unsettling. Despite the late hour, I contacted Steve for a beer, and we discussed our upcoming meeting. I confided in Steve about my suspicion, and he sympathetically offered his help. I believed Dunya was cheating because, while meeting Bobby at the airport, I saw 3 of Dunya's colleagues leaving with luggage, suggesting they had spent the week with her. Despite her voicemail saying she'd be in Dallas until Wednesday and on vacation until Monday, she told me she'd be teaching classes until Friday. Steve listened patiently and suggested I reach out to Frank Jones, who held a high position and might have more information. I expressed gratitude to Steve and mentioned my plan to contact Frank the following morning. As the sun rose on a new day, Frank Jones unexpectedly appeared, prompted by Steve. After recounting my story, I faced Frank's inquiries. After a brief pause, Frank posed a thought-provoking question. Had I been happily married for over 24 years, and was I truly ready to reveal the truth? Intrigued, I inquired about the reasons behind such a question. Frank cautiously replied that based on his experience, most marriages in such situations ended in divorce. He presented a series of questions for me to consider. How much information did I really want to obtain? How far into the past should we delve? What was my budget for the investigation? Was I prepared to work with the information we discovered? Shocked, I sat in silence before finally expressing, "Frank, I need to know every last detail, when, where, and with whom, please, as far-reaching as possible. I'm willing to lay out whatever it takes to find out the truth. If I have been deceived, I want to understand to what extent." In response, we decided that Frank should contact his reliable colleague, a private detective from Dallas, who could assist in studying Dunya's background. Additionally, one of his team members would review the training schedule. I was instructed to reach out to 3 teachers I saw on the way from the airport. While awaiting their responses, I meticulously checked the house for any clues, uncertain about what to look for and where to start. I excluded the living room, dining room, kitchen, Emily's and Kent's rooms from the search, choosing to begin with Dunya's dresser. I found nothing unusual among its contents, although everything seemed familiar. Upon opening the closet and observing numerous boxes, I decided to shift my attention to the bathroom. Unfortunately, no hidden information from Dunya was found in the bathroom. Returning to her closet, I remained determined to find some clue. Starting with hanging clothes and meticulously going through shoeboxes, I searched for anything strange or suspicious. Despite thoroughly searching our bedroom, the guest bedroom, the study, the garage, and the attic, I still couldn't comprehend anything or gain insight into the situation. Around 5 p.m., Frank finally arrived and swiftly set up surveillance cameras in all bedrooms, the office, and the kitchen. Additionally, he installed a voice recorder. After taking all security measures, we went to the airport, where we eventually located Dunya's car. The trunk had a GPS system, and a voice recorder was discreetly placed under the front seat. Frank and I had a light ale at the house, and he briefed me. Dunya's class schedule varied in duration from 3 to 5 days, depending on the location. For instance, classes in Dallas lasted 3 days, starting on Monday and ending on Wednesday. Tom, Paul, and Bev flew out on Sunday afternoon and returned on Wednesday evening. Teaching materials were delivered to the specified location a week before the scheduled class. But teachers weren't responsible for their placement and transportation. Each location had designated employees for those tasks. As I sat there trying to control my anger, I thought of my father, who always stressed the importance of keeping anger in check for clear thinking. Annoyed, I stormed into the kitchen, expressing my frustration. She had been lying to me all along. There should be consequences for this. Turning to Frank, I asked if he found anything during my search. Unfortunately, I replied, I found nothing suspicious. The only thing we noticed was that Dunya frequently washed her clothes. After discussing the issue, we decided that Frank would intercept her bag at the airport, and I would find a way to turn off the washing machine to delay her from starting laundry immediately. Before leaving, Frank mentioned his contact in Dallas being at Dunya's hotel and planning to talk to him in the morning before calling me. After Frank left, I realized I couldn't sleep in our bedroom and opted for Kent's bed. Needless to say, I slept very little. Trying to maintain my daily routine, I went to the office. We arranged to meet at my house later that day. Frank arrived at 2 p.m., carrying a stack of documents. The report from our Dallas employee arrived via email with attached photos. Frank showed me a picture of 6 people gathered at a restaurant table, 3 women and 3 men sitting in pairs. Curiously, Frank asked if I recognized any of these people. I stared at the photo before responding, "The only one I can identify is Dunya." To get a better look, he handed me individual photos of each person. I studied their faces again in silence, taking a few minutes to scrutinize the details. Handing Frank one of the photos, I mentioned the person seemed strangely familiar, but I couldn't recall where I had seen him before. While having our meal, Frank shared intriguing information. Video cameras were installed on all hotel floors facing the corridors. We began examining the next set of pictures, showing our group leaving the restaurant, entering the elevator, and eventually disembarking on the 7th floor. Interestingly, the women went to room 7007, and the men went to room 7009. On Friday morning at 10:29, photos depicted 2 men leaving room 7009. Subsequent images captured them exiting the elevator, walking down the hall, and leaving through the front door. These pictures conveyed a sense of a friendly or professional relationship rather than a romantic one. According to Frank, they went to a nearby restaurant for lunch, each covering their own bill. Later, additional photos at the hotel showed them carrying luggage from the room to the elevator. And then each went to the reception desk to complete the checkout process. With a serious expression, Frank turned to me and asked if I was absolutely sure about revealing all the details. Without hesitation, I confidently affirmed my decision. Frank hesitated for a moment, maintaining unwavering eye contact, and then continued. Meanwhile, I received another folder with information about the situation. I won't delve into the conversation details, but I learned that agents from Dallas entered rooms 7007 and 7009, meticulously recording every step alongside the cleaners. It was revealed that rooms 7007 and 7009 were connected by an internal door. To gather evidence, sheets were removed and sent to the laboratory for DNA analysis. Additionally, used glasses were carefully packed for fingerprints, and the garbage underwent thorough examination. According to the agent, there was a strong closeness smell in the rooms, and traces of use and stains were found on all 4 beds. To determine if Dunya actively participated or just observed, we must await the results of laboratory tests. Frank and I found it hard to believe otherwise, considering her likely involvement in these actions. It's unpleasant to witness the deceptive and unfaithful behavior of the woman I married. As for our next move, she should be back tonight. We decided to start by turning off the washing machine. We moved it and disconnected one of the wires connected to the motor. I believed Frank assigned me this simple task to give me time to process. Back in the kitchen, Frank suggested taking a DNA sample from me and asked if I could find a comb with the hair of each of the children. Perplexed, I asked why he suspected that the children may not be mine and expressed my confusion. "You wanted full transparency, didn't you?" I mused, before suggesting that we needed to collect a piece of hair before the first haircut. Needing only one strand for each person, he confirmed that this would be enough. Frank carefully packaged my sample as number 1, Kent's as number 2, and Emily's as number 3. We managed to take a strand from Donna's comb, labeled as number 4. Tomorrow morning, these samples would be sent to the laboratory. Frank had a contact at the airport who would try to intercept Donna's luggage, delaying her return due to the necessary procedures related to the missing baggage claim. After addressing these issues, our conversation shifted to how I could behave normally around Donna. Could I warmly greet her at home, hug and kiss her? Could I patiently listen to her made-up stories about the trip? Could I invite her to dinner tomorrow and engage in close activities with her? How long and convincingly could I continue to deceive her? Frank mentioned that his team needed ample time to collect and analyze evidence, warning that it could take several months to realize all the consequences of Donna's actions. Could I stay calm for this extended period? I promised him that I was ready to do whatever it took because my ultimate goal was to uncover the truth. Frank asked if it was possible for me to go on a 3 or 4 day business trip out of town, thinking about who I could visit in the shortest possible time without arousing suspicion from Donna. I smiled, looking up, and said I wanted to visit one of my longtime clients in St. Louis. I planned to inform Donna about my departure on Monday morning, with my return scheduled for Thursday afternoon. I asked Frank why he wanted me to leave, seeking an explanation. Frank clarified that if Donna had any hidden motives, she might avoid suspicious actions while I was away to prevent arousing doubts. There's a chance she could lower her guard, potentially making a foolish move. I sensed she had a great weekend and was eager to resume a relationship with someone. Unfortunately, her office lacked video surveillance, but we wondered if there was something she always carried that we could use to our advantage. Perhaps we could discreetly attach a small bug to it. Any suggestions? After pondering, I suggested her briefcase. Frank admitted it wasn't a perfect solution, but better than nothing. He left a bug with me, and in the evening, I could attach it to her briefcase. "It's time for me to go. Are you ready for the show?" Frank asked. I replied with a simple yes. As Frank was about to leave, he mentioned that if I had the chance tonight or tomorrow morning, I should check for liquid stains on Donna's underwear. "Good night. If you get a chance this weekend, call me. And remember, stay calm." I settled on the back terrace with a porter in hand, letting my thoughts wander. Apart from Donna planning to do laundry early Saturday morning, nothing made me doubt her intentions. Just before dawn, my morning was interrupted by a phone call from Frank. He informed me that Donna's luggage had reached the laboratory successfully. He emphasized the need to remain calm. At dawn, her typical travel fatigue mixed with disappointment over the airline mishandling her belongings. She was unhappy, especially about missing 2 recently bought pairs of trousers, but she said everything else could be replaced and the essentials were safe in her carry-on luggage. Seeking solace, she hugged me, expressing love and joy at returning home. She shared her longing for my presence during her absence. After a gentle hug and kiss, she headed upstairs for a relaxing bath. Meanwhile, I discreetly attached a bug to her briefcase and sat down in front of the TV, thinking about those cherished moments we shared. Recalling Donna's arrival, I couldn't shake the feeling of immense love from her. Despite travel fatigue and mild luggage dissatisfaction, she was thrilled to be home. Comparing my efforts to her impeccable work, I realized I needed to improve and match her level. It became clear that I needed to hone my abilities so that she would not see that I was behind the facade. I decided to fix the situation, put aside all doubts, and climbed the stairs, preparing for bed, where we'd find solace in each other's arms. I think Donna overslept Saturday morning as she didn't have any worries with the laundry. Before taking a shower, I involuntarily began to examine Donna's underwear and a basket of dirty laundry, feeling uneasy as if I had invaded her personal life. I didn't expect to closely inspect her underwear. Though not an expert, I found nothing unusual. After a bath, I went downstairs, made coffee, fetched the newspaper, and waited patiently for Donna. When I was pouring my 3rd cup of coffee, she came into the kitchen with a calm expression on her face, wrapped in a bathrobe and smiling. I greeted her with a cheerful, "Good morning, sleepyhead." Seeing her well-rested, I remarked that it looked like she was ready to conquer the day. I offered her a cup of coffee, to which she gratefully smiled and expressed her desire for one. I jokingly mentioned that I should make luggage mistakes more often if it led to such delightful vacations. After our shared breakfast, I went outside to attend to my own tasks. A few hours later, she mentioned her plan to go to the grocery store and kindly asked if I needed anything. Politely declining, I said, "No thanks." While she was out, I planned to organize and transfer a batch of English brown ale from the primary to the secondary fermenter. During dinner at our favorite Italian restaurant, we had a lively conversation, sharing our impressions of the past week and discussing upcoming plans. I spoke about my recent trip to St. Louis, and she expressed happiness at being home after exhausting travels. She mentioned that if her luggage was still missing by Wednesday, she'd go shopping for replacements after work. To my relief, she hoped no one would find out about it, except for those trousers she'd worn for ages. I grinned and continued to share with her the details of my latest batch of English brown ale. In the end, we decided to wrap it up, and I made 2 cases of my homemade beer before heading to St. Louis. I know the journey takes more than 8 hours, but what can I say? I sincerely love to drive, as it allows me to be alone and reflect. Usually my thoughts revolve around my business, but on this trip, I was thinking only about Donna. On the way, I dialed Frank's number and told him about my weekend. Although he had no new information, he said he would keep in touch. Lost in thought, I was surprised to realize that 4 hours had already passed. I dialed Frank's number again, deciding to get down to business. I asked him to tell me honestly what his intuition said. Taking a pause to collect his thoughts, Frank replied that he had discussed this issue with Joe in Dallas, and they were sure that Donna had been having numerous affairs for a long time. We proceed from the fact that it is impossible to simply observe many hours of close meetings without active participation. In addition, their undeniable closeness to each other further reinforces our suspicions. They showed no signs of fuss or nervousness, did not hold on to each other, but went into different rooms without attracting attention. People have been developing such confidence in their actions for years. I feel intuitively that you may be unhappy with our conclusions regarding this group, which includes your wife, Frank said. According to him, their operative reported that these 6 people discussed classes, their families, and showed amazing ease in communicating with each other. It is noteworthy that they bore their own expenses, deliberately avoided sitting next to the same person during meals, and communicated with each member of the group. It is safe to say that this group has maintained its connection for a long time. They maintained a friendly atmosphere in the hotel rooms, but once inside, they threw stormy parties. Frank's last words to me were about the need to make a decision regarding Donna and the other members of that group. After that, I contacted my lawyer, Michael Davidson, the best divorce lawyer in the state. After giving him brief information, he convinced me that Dave Ford would definitely contact me. After settling into a hotel room, I called Tanya to inform her of my safe arrival in St. Louis. Then, I contacted Fred to confirm our planned golf game. At about 9:30 p.m., Frank called to see how I was doing. I told him that I had already given his name to my lawyer and that Mike would contact Dave Ford on my behalf. Frank found it funny and mentioned that Dave Ford's reputation alone could intimidate any lawyer Donna approached. I'm tired, and I really want this situation to end. If they want to play violent games, then I am ready to show my skills. On Tuesday, I spent the whole day with Fred on the golf course. Around 1 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon, Frank called me and asked about my schedule. I told him that I was free until the end of the day and planned to go home on Thursday morning. At about 2 p.m., Dave Ford contacted me and I informed him about the current situation. I felt relieved when he gave his approval of my success. He highly praised Frank's company, considering it among the best. After learning my plans, Dave inquired about my desires. If Donna proves unfaithful, I'll seek a divorce. However, to fully grasp my disappointment in Donna and her partners, I must wait for Frank's team's investigation to conclude. I suggest starting the divorce process, citing infidelity as the basis. Our conversation shifted to gathering evidence during the upcoming class and discussing my ability to maintain the appearance of a normal life for several months. Dave informed me about the possibility of a quick, no-fault divorce in Georgia. Accusing her of infidelity would be more profitable, especially with our children being adults. After further discussion, I realized I needed to carefully consider my approach to divorce. On Wednesday evening at 9 p.m., there was a sudden knock on my door. To my surprise, Steve and Frank were standing there. I asked about their unexpected visit, and Frank replied with unpleasant news he wanted to share personally. Steve didn't know the purpose, but Frank thought it would be good for me to have a friend during this conversation. It's up to you whether Steve stays to hear the news. Despite the seriousness, I wanted Steve to stay. Seated, I met Frank's eyes as he revealed that test results confirmed Donna's active participation. Shockingly, traces of all 6 individuals' activities were found on one bed, even though each woman had her own bed. Our evidence strongly proves that every woman had close relations with all 3 men on their beds. Identifying Donna was possible with the DNA sample taken from our house's hair.
Jay, I'm sorry for how things turned out.
I was stunned, trying to grasp the depth of the situation. Time seemed to have stopped, and I sat in silence, closing my eyes to regain calm and suppress the growing rage. Finally, I plucked up the courage and opened my eyes to utter words of disbelief, doubting anything could be more terrible than finding out my wife was involved with 5 other people. Frank, with a slight cough, revealed the unthinkable truth. 2 of these men turned out to be the biological fathers of our children, Kent and Emily. I wasn't their father. This news hit me like a ton of bricks. In an instant, I jumped up, shouting for an explanation. How can this be? My children weren't mine. I thought to myself, I will have a certain benefit from this opportunity, as I will be the one to use it. This woman has been in an extramarital relationship for more than 24 years, deceiving and manipulating me. They sat in silence, watching me walk up and down the room in agitation. My thoughts were racing, trying to figure out the news I had just learned. My once perfect world was crumbling before my eyes. How do I navigate this situation now? It was impossible to imagine that neither Kent nor Emily were my biological children. Not to mention that my wife had a long-term love affair with one of the partners throughout our marriage. Frank accurately assessed the current difficult situation. It was clear that the consequences of this would be severe. I planned to show my ability to play hard. Steve and Frank watched as my emotions gradually changed from shock, disbelief, and confusion to sadness, loneliness, loss, anger, rage, and finally determination. Time seemed to freeze. I walked back and forth, not realizing how much time had passed. It became clear that Frank and Steve came to me in St. Louis, not only to provide support but also to prevent impulsive acts. When I regained my composure and pulled myself together, their purpose became clear. During the conversation, we discussed my position and plans. I made it clear that she must answer for her actions. Despite the lack of sleep, their presence provided much-needed support, as I doubted I could drive a car without them. Having received the necessary evidence, we carefully selected the most effective measures to influence them. A divorce from Donna would have been a loud and humiliating affair for her, although I admit I would have to experience embarrassment as well. Over time, the truth that Emily and Kent had different fathers would become widely known, exposing my wife's unfaithful nature. In the state of Georgia, both parties have the option to file for a no-fault divorce, which means filing, waiting for 30 days, getting a divorce, and dividing the property. In the case of filing for divorce based on infidelity, the process becomes much longer, taking months to set the court session date and provide evidence. Despite my strong desire to bring Donna to court for her infidelity and force her through all the court proceedings, my friends Steve, Frank, and Dave convinced me of the need for a no-fault divorce. They said it would be faster and more economical, and at the same time, I would be able to embarrass Donna and her partners. Now, all I had to do was decide when to proceed with the divorce. In Atlanta, Steve, Frank, Dave, and I gathered in Frank's conference room to discuss what we knew, what information we still needed to get, what methods to get it, and what actions needed to be taken to bring them to justice. Curiously, I asked Frank if Donna had been involved in any suspicious activities while I was away in St. Louis. Frank replied that Donna had done nothing wrong and had not conducted any inappropriate phone conversations. Continuing the conversation, Frank said that we were able to trace all the actions of a group of 6 people over the past 5 years. Interestingly, 2 members of the group constantly booked adjacent rooms, although they were not always the same people. Although most often all 6 people were present in the room, there were cases when the composition of the group changed. At times, one woman appeared next to 3 men, forming a group of at least 4 people. I did not expect such a development of events, and therefore I began to show my despair by damaging the table with force and sharply calling it cheating. I demanded that Frank thoroughly investigate the gang of 6 people, including Donna, and find out all the details. It became clear that my knowledge of the situation was limited. I wanted to discover their marital status, the duration of their parental relationships, and whether the children of these women were fathered by their husbands. Additionally, I needed information on whether they all worked in the same organization, their places of residence, and other details that could be uncovered. With Donna's schedule in hand, Frank obtained information about upcoming classes and their locations. This allowed Frank to establish contact and develop a detailed plan, including installing cameras and bugs in hotel rooms. Frank understood that evidence collected this way couldn't be used in court, but his goal was to achieve a guilt-free divorce, requiring crucial information. An interesting detail in Donna's calendar was that she had exactly 3 classes scheduled before our upcoming 25th wedding anniversary celebration. Notably, the 25th anniversary fell on a Sunday, and Donna's last class in Orlando ended on Friday. Observing this group, I firmly decided that our anniversary would mark the end of our communication. I chose not to participate in any celebrations with her, as her gift would not be appreciated. At that moment, I would cease being a deceived spouse, and she would begin facing the consequences of her deceitful actions that persisted for over 24 years. In that moment, I would turn my suffering into her worst nightmare. Donna would deeply regret the day our paths crossed because I considered her guilty of numerous lies endured throughout our marriage. A week passed, and we gathered in Dave's conference room, eagerly awaiting news from Frank. As I settled in, I couldn't help but reflect on the incredible journey we all experienced together. The group, known as the Gang of Six, included George C. Thomas from Richmond, Virginia, Henry S. King from Little Rock, Arkansas, Charles K. Nixon from Columbia, South Carolina, Joyce D. Hopkins from Miami, Florida, Catherine G. Williams from Knoxville, Tennessee, and of course, Donna. Fate brought them together over 24 years ago during a training program for new employees of the same organization. When the Wednesday of Donna's last class arrived, Frank, Steve, Dave, and I gathered around the conference table, ready to hear the latest news. Last week in Washington, Donna and Henry occupied adjoining rooms, while the other 4 members of the group were scattered on different floors of the hotel. It was discovered that Donna and Henry, in adjacent rooms, slept in the same room at the same time. No woman entered or left the man's room, and there was never a simultaneous exit from adjacent rooms. During the whole day and early evening, they spent a lot of time together, but after 10 p.m., they gradually dispersed to their rooms. Only after 2 a.m. did they return to their rooms, except for Thursday evening when all 6 spent the whole night in adjacent rooms. Their conversations and interactions outside the rooms resembled those of professional colleagues. They discussed accommodation, meals, attended games and performances, and shared news about their children's classes. After 24 years of living together, keeping their secrets hidden had become a familiar thing. Once again, Frank's agents discreetly entered the room, posing as a cleaning crew. Fortunately, close contacts occurred only in adjacent rooms, making it easier to collect hair samples and fingerprints from each participant for further analysis. Sheets from each room were carefully collected, along with samples of women's underwear. Thanks to irrefutable DNA evidence, we successfully uncovered the truth. George turned out to be Emily's father, and Chuck was Kent's biological father. Donna faced difficulties associated with unprotected closeness, having many partners, making it impossible to determine the true father of her children. In Richmond, Virginia, George C. Thomas had been married for 24 years with 2 adult children. George and his wife were unaware that they would soon find out about another daughter. Similarly, Henry S. King from Little Rock, Arkansas, had been married for 23 years, with twin sons who turned 21. On the other hand, Charles K. Nixon from Columbia, South Carolina, tied the knot with his high school sweetheart and had been married for 25 years, resulting in a son. Chuck was on the verge of revealing the truth that he had another son. In Miami, Florida, Joyce D. Hopkins, happily married, was getting ready to celebrate her 25th wedding anniversary. Joyce is a proud mother of a 23-year-old son and a 21-year-old daughter. Meanwhile, Catherine G. Williams from Knoxville, Tennessee, had been married for 23 years and is the mother of 2 daughters and a son. All members of the friendly group called the Gang of Six had been married for over 23 years and seemed content, except for Chuck, who recently discovered the painful reality of his wife's infidelity. We were curious about whether any of these 3 men could be the fathers of Joyce or Catherine's children. It's very likely that at least one of them is the biological father, and their spouses probably want to know the answer too. Frank hoped to find out by next Wednesday, although I wasn't sure about his plans. In a brief meeting at Dave's office on Wednesday, Frank informed us that classes in Orlando lasted only 3 days, which was quite surprising. Can you believe it? Next Thursday and Friday, the group planned to spend time before its anniversary. Donna's complete lack of respect for me was indisputable. She would be responsible for the consequences. When I came to my senses a little, Frank reminded me that I was not the only spouse whose children had different biological fathers. Henry was the father of both Joyce's daughter and Catherine's son. Catherine had 2 daughters whose fathers were George and Chuck. Surprisingly, Joyce was the only woman among all who had at least one child whose father was her husband. Henry is the biological father of Joyce's daughter and Catherine's son. George is Emily's father. One of Catherine's daughters is also the child of Chuck, who is her biological father. It's all pretty confusing, and I feel like I need a flowchart to keep track of it all. Even though I know my marriage is over and I've gone through all the stages of grief, I find the strength to create the appearance of a loving husband. It's become a kind of game for me. I pretend to be affectionate while secretly planning how to ruin my future ex-wife Donna, who cheated on me. It's pretty funny, considering she's been cheating on me for over 24 years. If she can lie to my face for so long, then I will definitely be able to pretend to be a devoted, caring, albeit forgetful, husband for several months. Frank's team planned to carry out the same procedures in San Diego as in Washington. They were going to scrupulously examine the collected records and evidence, hoping to find all the missing details. With unshakable confidence, they expected that everything would happen the same way as in Washington. Personally, I couldn't contain my excitement about the upcoming trip to Orlando and was happy to think about how to turn their lives into an absolute nightmare. Unfortunately, Catherine couldn't join us in San Diego. But since classes in Orlando lasted 3 days, all 6 of us agreed that we would attend them. The prospect of spending 2 days without the presence of colleagues, where we could maneuver freely, filled us with joyful anticipation. Donna was clearly neglecting our anniversary when she chose to spend time with her comrades instead of rushing to the one she supposedly loves. She didn't know yet that I had already planned to be their instructor for Wednesday afternoon. In the presence of all the students, I would hold the final hour of classes so that everyone would witness the final exit of the Gang of 6. Dave Ford and his team were well informed and prepared to process the necessary legal documents. He gave me a guarantee that everything necessary would be ready on time. In addition, Frank ordered his staff to be present on the spot and closely monitor the members of the group. The moment of truth was fast approaching. Dave, Frank, Steve, and I had jointly developed a strategy to eliminate their vulnerability. After the foundation was laid, my moment finally came when I had to go on stage. After Donna's departure in the 4th update, I took the initiative to establish contacts with the spouses of our close-knit group of 6 people. I shared with them my plan to surprise my wife in Orlando in honor of our 25th wedding anniversary and 25 years of experience in the company. Considering that their spouses joined the company at the same time as mine, I decided that their presence would be pleasant for everyone. As a token of appreciation, I booked flights that would be waiting for them at the boarding gate. I informed Kent and Emily of the plan to surprise their mother on Wednesday and invited them to meet me in Orlando on Tuesday. In the evening of the same day, I got together with the children and told them all the details. We spent several hours discussing how I found out the truth, the evidence I gathered, my intentions to destroy their mother's world the next day, and, most importantly, how much I cherish them. During our heartfelt conversation, I told them that I might not be their biological father, but assured them that I would always be a loving father to them. We hugged tightly and tears flowed down our faces. They had a lot of questions, and I tried to answer them honestly without embellishing my answers. I begged them not to tell their mother, and they both promised not to. Looking into their eyes, I said that I would like them to accompany me tomorrow when I would confront their mother and shame her. I acknowledged that this was a very important request and apologized if it confused them. Unfortunately, the fact that they are not my biological children would soon be made public in the Atlanta newspapers, which would undoubtedly lead to shame for all of us. If they decided to come, they would witness my rude attitude toward their mother and her companions. I may say something that will embarrass them, but it is important to know that nothing I say will change my attitude toward them. Since you're already adults, I cannot legally adopt you, although I would gladly do it if I could. But despite this, I want you to know that I sincerely love you both and consider you my children. It is up to you to decide whether you will attend because, in the end, she is your mother. Take your time, think about everything, and make a decision yourself, knowing that I will love you from now on and forever. Kent asked with tears in his eyes. Dad, I understand that Mom loves you and you love her. Can you find the strength in your heart to forgive her and move on? Why don't you both go to a psychologist to sort this out? Looking at my children, I tried to stay calm and keep myself in hand. How can you calmly and rationally answer such incredulous questions? Taking a deep breath, I realized that as children, they naturally want their parents to always be together and constantly present next to them. So, please close your eyes and let me take you on a journey, I said. Imagine that you have met an extraordinary person whom you consider an ideal partner, with whom you want to spend the rest of your life. The very thought of being separated from them, even for a moment, becomes unbearable. After a magical honeymoon, you both start building your careers, and over the years you have 2 wonderful children. Your life revolves around the happiness and well-being of your family. Whether it's football training or cheerleading camps, you dedicate your time to supporting your loved ones in their pursuits. This extends from adolescence into adulthood. Sharing romantic getaways and close dinners with your spouse, you cherish every moment spent together. Holding your loved ones close, you recognize them as the most precious treasure in your life. Your love for them drives you to make the most of every minute. Even when unexpected opportunities lead you to leave the city for a while, no matter where you go, your heart longs to return to the warm embrace of family. Grateful for their presence, you express your thanks to God daily, understanding that your family brings immense joy and happiness into your life. In this state of contentment and bliss, you find solace in believing that life cannot get any better. Take a moment to ponder these words as they sink into your consciousness, I continued. Happiness radiates from the faces of the people before me. Kent, picture yourself watching a movie with your beloved wife. In one scene, she finds herself in a hotel room with 3 men and 2 women. Each woman selects a card from the deck, and your wife's face lights up with joy when she reveals her ace of spades. Given this scenario, Kent, do you still believe in your wife's love for you? Emily, envision your husband as one of the men in this movie. How do you feel about forgiveness? Are you willing to seek help from a psychologist and overcome this issue together? Kent sat there, his eyes filled with tears, and Emily sobbed beside him. Both needed time to process my words and regain control of their overwhelming emotions. As the film concluded and the credits rolled, it became evident that the group had consistently released 4 films a year for 24 years. Surprisingly, we even gained access to a live broadcast of them shooting another movie in a hotel room just a kilometer away from us. Additionally, I managed to collect over 40 hours of video recordings of your mother and her colleagues during the 3 previous expeditions. Wouldn't it be devastating to discover that you're not the biological parent of your children, or worse, that your husband is the biological father of someone else's child? How would you feel upon learning such revelations? Continuing my thoughts, I presented a scenario where the person dearest to you decides to leave you and your children a day early to engage in entertainment with a group of people solely for an extra day of fornication activities. Furthermore, they decide to extend their stay for an additional 2 days solely to continue their carnal lifestyle. When your spouse returns home, it takes a whole day for them to recover before being with you, the person they claim to love. How much love, respect, and care do you think they feel for their spouses or your children? Your mother not only disrespected and lied to me, but also to both of you. Kent, holding back tears, responded that he had never thought about it from that point of view, and acknowledged that his father was right. He expressed that he wouldn't want his wife to treat him in a similar manner, and hadn't anticipated that his mom would prefer spending more time with this group instead of being at home. Kent expressed his love, stated uncertainty about being around tomorrow, and apologized for the pain his father was going through. He promised to keep his father posted and mentioned that if his wife ever did such a thing, he would give her a good kick. Emily expressed her gratitude for having such a wonderful father and stated her love for him. She acknowledged that Kent seemed to put his interests ahead of theirs, similar to how their mom chose her group. Emily also mentioned that she and her father would be there tomorrow, and that it was time for Kent to step up and become a responsible adult. Taken aback by Emily's unexpected reaction and outburst, I admired my kids with a burning look. Emily inquired about the plan of action for tomorrow. I explained that I had invited the spouses of the members of this company consisting of 6 people to join us tomorrow for a surprise celebration. Their spouses believed that we were celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary, and since they had been with Donna all these years, I decided it would be appropriate for them to take part in the celebration. You and Kent are the only ones who know about this in advance. I want it to be a complete surprise for everyone else. I plan to provide them with all the evidence I have so that they can freely express their emotions and calmly react to their unfaithful partners. By the way, don't forget that you have stepbrothers and sisters that you might want to meet later. All 5 remaining partners joined us at the hotel. We had the opportunity to meet, get acquainted, and enjoy a delicious lunch. At 2 p.m., our group, including Kent, went to the hotel where Donna's class was taking place. When we entered the lobby of the hotel, the rest of my unexpected guests were already waiting for us. Among them were a lawyer from Dave Ford's office, Frank's employee, and an experienced videographer. To top it off, a florist arrived at 2:30 p.m. to deliver 25 red roses ordered by me personally. Emily and other women couldn't help but admire their beauty and noted how beautiful they looked. Emily's eyes were blazing with determination. She was preparing for the upcoming battle. Taking a break to calm down, I told her that everything was in my hands. At exactly 2:45 p.m., we went to the meeting room, Emily leading the way and Kent following. The couple, overcome with anticipation, looked no less excited. Carrying a bouquet of 25 roses, I entered Donna's classroom at 3 p.m., accompanied by John Manning and his video camera. Donna's face turned crimson when she noticed me approaching with flowers and a smile on my face. I playfully noted that her blush perfectly combined with the roses, which caused a burst of laughter from everyone present. Smiling, Donna looked at me and then turned to face the class, introducing me as JT, her beloved husband. Scanning the room, I noticed the other 5 people scattered around, just as I expected. Turning back to Donna, I conveyed that I knew today was the last day of classes and, before they all left, I would appreciate their help to make this day unforgettable for her. I shared that this Sunday we would be celebrating our amazing 25th wedding anniversary. Right on cue, a group led by Emily emerged from the hallway. As they entered, the photographer captured a stunning picture of Donna's face, although her expression was absolutely priceless. The close group members appeared to be in complete panic. Grinning broadly, I stood and observed as Emily introduced Donna to the spouses of her friends involved in the affair. It was clear that Emily was relishing the unfolding drama, and I realized her future husband should be cautious. I explained that we were celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary this Sunday, and hoped to get their help to make it special. I mentioned that next month, Donna would be marking the 25th anniversary of her work in this company, making it truly wonderful when two significant events happened in such a short time. I found it interesting that around the same time, George, Henry, Chuck, Joyce, and Catherine joined the company. To make this event more memorable, I invited their spouses to join us. I informed them that John would be recording this special event on video, so they should take a moment and say a few words to the camera before leaving. After a pause and a deep breath, my pulse began to slow down, allowing me to truly appreciate the familiar faces of this incredible group of 6 people. I invited George, Henry, Chuck, Joyce, and Catherine to step forward and join us. The group moved to the front of the room, receiving applause from other participants. When Emily appeared next to me, I sensed she was eagerly anticipating what was coming. Taking her hand in mine, I guided her to George. In a calm voice, I introduced George Thomas as Emily's biological father. Donna's face turned pale. She looked like a ghost. George's wife stared at me with disbelief and asked me to repeat my words. I confirmed that indeed George is Emily's biological father. George found his voice and questioned why I thought he was her father. I extended my hand and the lawyer placed 3 documents in my palm. Turning to George, I handed him the first document, saying it was a petition for a court-ordered paternity test. Handing him the second document, I continued, stating that I was suing him, demanding 21 years of unpaid alimony and compensation for emotional suffering caused. Finally, I handed George a copy of the lawsuit against his employer, explaining it was a lawsuit for non-compliance with the moral obligations in his employment contract. I assured George's wife that I had copies of all the evidence she could use at her discretion. The atmosphere in the room became chaotic as other spouses realized this wasn't a joyful celebration. Amidst the chaos, I found comfort in my own amusement. Unexpectedly, Kent approached me, stood tall, and silently nodded in appreciation. At that moment, pride overwhelmed me as I looked at Kent with a sense of achievement. I guided us to Chuck, intending to introduce him similarly to how I introduced Emily to her biological father. I said to Kent, trying to sound confident, that I wanted him to meet his biological father, Charles Nixon. An eerie silence filled the room when Chuck's middle name was pronounced. As the name lingered, the lawyer calmly handed me the documents. Thoroughly, I went through each page with Chuck, repeating the process I had done with George. Chuck's wife, concerned, asked if she had copies. I confirmed that I had them. When the realization hit that Donna had only 2 children, a sense of calm settled over everyone in the room. Smiling, I anticipated that I wouldn't let the others get away unscathed. They enjoyed their games, and now it was time for them to face the consequences. Donna sat on a chair, tears streaming down her face. I announced, realizing my appearance had caught them by surprise, that they should get ready because the real fun was about to begin. A silence enveloped the room as if a pin could be heard falling. Taking a deep breath, I continued, revealing a secret that had been buried for 5 long months. Donna, Joyce, Catherine, George, Chuck, and Henry attended classes together for the sole purpose of avoiding their duties. This charade had been going on for over 2 decades. Discussing this revelation, I couldn't help but mention Emily, who had recently turned 23. The truth was finally out, and the consequences were about to unfold. Let's break it down. Henry is the biological father of Joyce's daughter and Catherine's son. The eldest daughter of Catherine is George's biological child, while Kent's biological father is Chuck. Surprisingly, Joyce's son is actually her husband's child. Can you believe it? Of the 7 children these 3 women had, only 1 is the child of their spouse. The room was in complete chaos. I won't delve into the rest of the events in detail. Picture a scenario where all the necessary legal documents had been successfully delivered. Copies of these documents were given to the spouses, leading to a massive upheaval within the group of 6 people. Handing Donna the divorce papers, I firmly stated that she should not contact me, return home, or attempt to see me again. I couldn't help but express my deep disappointment with her deceitful and wrongful actions. Sitting in my hotel room, I spent some time pondering the events related to Donna and her friends, but my thoughts were interrupted by Emily, who suddenly appeared next to me. Initially, I planned to confront Donna gradually, addressing each member of her group and eventually revealing the truth about the children. Emily had a strong desire to meet face-to-face with her biological father. As for me, I decided to abandon my original plan and go with the flow. My main goal was to inform the group of 6 people that I had discovered their infidelity and expose them to their spouses. I wanted to publicly shame them in front of my colleagues and take legal action against them by handing them the claim documents. As a result, their spouses were left furious, bringing me a sense of satisfaction and self-confidence. Suddenly, a knock interrupted my thoughts, prompting me to open the door. To my surprise, my children were standing there, the same ones who had previously helped their mother into her room. After greeting them, I asked what brought them to my doorstep. Emily hugged me tightly, showing her love for me. She began acknowledging my reluctance to discuss her mother and mentioned that she understood that I didn't want to hear about her mom. However, she explained that Donna was in a fragile state and she had decided to take her home the next day and give her a whole week to pack her things before returning to Atlanta. Despite everything Donna had done to our family, Emily expressed that she couldn't help but love her. There was determination in Emily's eyes, and I realized that Donna was in desperate need of someone's support. I was grateful to Emily for doing what was right for her mother. The last few days had shown me that Emily is an incredibly resilient and strong woman. Kent, expressing himself, said that he loved me and despised the way Mom had ruined our family. He asked if he could accompany me on my trip home tomorrow. Without hesitation, I happily agreed, saying that I would be glad if he came home with me tomorrow. Emily got up from her seat, hugged me, and said she was going to stay the night with her mom because she didn't think Donna should be left alone. As she walked out the door, her last words were, "Daddy, I love you." Kent and I spent a few hours together, drank several bottles of beer, after which he went to his room. 5 years have passed since I dismantled a gang of 6 people that once flourished, and I am glad to report that these years have been prosperous for me. The satisfaction I feel regarding the consequences inflicted on this group is immeasurable. Over the next week, all 6 people were dismissed from their posts. Now, they are divorced, have no means of livelihood, are broken, and are completely alone. Strangely enough, their past keeps coming up and tormenting them whenever they manage to find a decent job, which eventually forces them to look for an alternative job. I would like to take responsibility for their misfortunes, but another structure is closely monitoring their actions. They are trying to rebuild their lives and establish relationships with their children, but I'm very pleased to report that their path is far from over. Their ex-partners only reach out when they need money. Some of them are slowly rebuilding connections with their kids. When I returned to Atlanta and spent a night in our house, I realized I couldn't stay there again. It held too many memories that were too painful. In my search for a new home, I temporarily stayed in a hotel. Kent joined me on the trip to Atlanta but later moved to Dallas, Texas, where he landed his first real job. He seems happy with his work and has been promoted 4 times. Currently single, he actively dates and enjoys his job, contemplating joining my company this summer. Even though 5 years have passed, the relationship with their mother remains strained. They occasionally talk on the phone. Kent hadn't seen his mother for a long time since we left Orlando. On the other hand, Kent and Emily converse almost daily. The consequences of exposing the gang of 6 have profoundly affected us, especially the children. I'm uncertain if Kent will ever trust someone enough for marriage, but Emily took Donna with her to Naples for a week. Emily constantly thwarted Donna's attempts to explain, insisting she leave it for her therapist, as she wasn't interested in what she considered lies. Emily firmly believes she can't find an adequate explanation for Donna's actions and the subsequent destruction of their family. Furthermore, Donna didn't receive an invitation to Emily's private wedding celebrating their first anniversary. Emily and her husband, Trey, presently live in Atlanta. Emily chose not to work in my company, although she joined 2 years ago. Despite this, I value her nearby presence, discovering she has a natural talent for business. Emily made it clear to Trey from the start about the consequences if she found out about his infidelity, knowing well what Donna had done. After exposing the gang of 6, their spouses and children gathered in Atlanta 8 months later. Being around people who experienced similar emotions and tried to move forward helped us navigate life. The children have formed strong bonds and continue to communicate. In 3 weeks, we're heading to Nashville for another meeting. It turns out that when the gang of 6 began cheating, instead of engaging in intimacy, they paired up for a week. Emily and Kent were named after George's mother and his father, respectively, forever connecting them to their biological father. Even after 5 years, their relationship with Donna remains strained. Emily, at least, agrees to have lunch with her, but Kent categorically refuses to meet her. Once, I was deeply in love with Donna until I discovered her deceit and infidelity. I understand it's tough for some men to move forward, but I'm not one of them. Life goes on. We have 2 options: give up or get up and move on. My children depended on me and I depended on them. Donna and I agreed she'd keep the house as she believed it held too many cherished memories to part with. I, on the other hand, had different views. I also settled matters with George and Chuck, placing the money they provided in trust funds for Emily and Kent. My intention wasn't to profit, but to make them feel the consequences of their actions. 6 months after finalizing our divorce, I decided to start dating again. My main goal was to find someone special to share my love and life with. The key to a full and joyful life is both loving someone and being loved in return. Until that happens, I'll patiently search and wait for Emily to give me grandchildren to shower with affection. It's crucial to note that committing such deceptive actions as betrayal doesn't lead to positive outcomes. In the end, retribution only perpetuates a destructive cycle. Additionally, Donna faced humiliation publicly, and karma punished her. Her relationships with men faltered, and she struggled to find decent employment. Currently, she works as a cook in a fast food restaurant, and a terrible incident occurred at work. Hot oil from the deep fryer spilled over her body from the waist down. Her skin suffered 95% damage. It's like Donna has been scalded alive. I can't fathom the pain. Now she's in the clinic under close medical supervision.
Story 2.
I started a live stream of my wife cheating while she was in the act with her affair partner. Hey there. I'm Rick, but my buddies call me Head. I work as a broadcast engineer at WBDK, a local CBS station in Atlanta, Georgia. I've got a fancy graduate degree from MIT in electrical engineering and computer science, and I also picked up another degree in broadcast technologies. I've been working in this field for 22 years, taking on some challenging roles along the way before landing here in Atlanta. For the past 5 years, I hopped around various TV stations on the East Coast. Ghost, I'm 46 years old with dark hair, and I'm 6 feet 3 inches tall, weighing in at around 190 lbs. Some folks might say I'm good looking, but I'm no TV heartthrob. I've been happily married to Sharon for a solid 22 years, and we've got 2 daughters, Melanie and Stephanie. Melanie's already tied the knot, and Stephanie's just about to graduate from college. Sharon stands at about 5 feet 5 inches and doesn't weigh more than 135 lbs with long blonde hair. She's a real sweetheart, both inside and out. These days, she's working as a secretary for our pastor, Reverend Bob Shelter, and she's been doing that job for the past 1.5 years. Now, let me tell you about last Friday. I had some extra time for lunch and decided to surprise Sharon by taking her out. I parked at the church office's side entrance due to the rain, hoping to get closer to the door. However, when I arrived, I found Sharon's office empty. Still, I went inside. While I was waiting, I overheard Sharon talking to Pastor Bob in his office. She was looking forward to Monday night and mentioned how great it was that I work on the Monday night football games for the station because it gives us a chance to spend time together. She also asked about a reservation at the L Inn. Pastor Bob assured her, yes, it's all set. I've booked the Whirlpool suite again. Come over here, and let me show it to you right now. I heard some rustling of clothes and then Sharon's moans. I was shocked, on the verge of feeling sick, and my anger was building up. I knew I needed to leave before doing something foolish. I couldn't bear to listen any longer. I had the urge to barge in and confront them, but I hesitated because I knew I'd lose control, and maybe even get physical, given my emotional state at that moment. I was certain I'd end up kicking both of them. However, I didn't want to face the consequences of my actions, so I made the tough decision to turn and leave. It was one of the most difficult things I've ever done. I wanted to lash out, but I walked away. I was pretty sure neither of them noticed me or knew I had been there. They had security cameras watching the main entrances of the church, but I had entered and exited through the side door without being spotted. I was so shaken that I realized I wouldn't be able to focus for the rest of the day. I called my workplace and explained that I wasn't feeling well, saying I needed to go home. I needed time to think about what had just happened, and being at home seemed like the best place to do that. Sharon wouldn't be home until after 4 p.m., giving me ample time to process everything. It became evident that Sharon was having an affair with Pastor Bob, and I decided that I couldn't continue to consider him my pastor. What I really needed to uncover was the full extent of their relationship, how long it had been going on, and what had led to it in the first place. I understand that some people prefer not to delve into these details because they believe they don't matter, but I'm not one of those people. I desperately wanted to understand why this had occurred in my seemingly wonderful marriage, a marriage that, in Sharon's eyes, apparently wasn't as wonderful as I thought. She wasn't the sweet person I had believed her to be, and I was determined to uncover the truth. I wasn't weak, and I was determined to get to the bottom of this situation, ensuring that both of them faced the consequences of their actions. Once I arrived home, I brewed a pot of coffee and went outside to sit on the patio, hoping the pleasant weather and fresh air would help me think clearly. I needed to make sense of everything that had happened. I won't deny that I shed a few tears that afternoon because I did. I understand I don't own Sharon or her body, but it deeply hurt me to think she'd been sexually involved with another man, or perhaps more, when she had promised herself to me on our wedding day. Some might not take those vows seriously, but I did, and I believed she did too. Such a situation makes you question your entire set of values and wonder if you've been foolish your whole life to believe in faithfulness and love and all that comes with it. Regardless of what anyone says, the most damaging part of a cheating partner isn't just the physical act, it's the loss of trust in them and everything they say or do. It's like throughout your whole marriage, you thought they had your back, but now you realize they don't, leaving you feeling exposed and scared. Despite being 6 feet 3 inches tall and weighing 190 lbs, I felt vulnerable and frightened. It underscores how a cheating spouse can affect a person's emotional well-being. As I sat there battling my emotions and trying to stay calm and logical so I could process everything, I realized there were things I had questioned in the past, but let go of because of the trust I had in Sharon. These were little things that didn't seem significant at the time, but had now formed a heavy lump in the pit of my stomach as I connected the dots. How could I have been so foolish? It was trust, plain and simple. I had put my trust in her, and today that trust lay shattered. What I needed were cold, hard facts. I wanted to know why this had happened. I wanted to understand the duration, frequency, locations, and who else might be involved. My trust had evaporated, and I was determined to find the answers I needed. As an update, I didn't think I could face Sharon just yet without revealing my feelings. So at 3 p.m., I decided to leave the house before she returned. I drove into town and stopped by the station to pick up a few things I'd need for the next couple of days. I popped into my boss's office and asked for a couple of days off early in the week, explaining that I was dealing with some personal issues and not feeling well. He agreed, so I left and went to Frankie's to hang out until I had to go home. Around 5 p.m., I called Sharon to let her know I'd be stopping for a while and wouldn't be home for dinner. She seemed annoyed with me and mentioned how she was feeling amorous tonight and that I would have been in for a treat. However, my plans were already made, so I told her to keep the mood hot for me, assuring her I'd take care of her when I got home. She replied sternly, "Don't count on it, mister. If you think you can treat me like that, you won't be getting anything for a while." Deep down, I thought to myself that this was precisely what I wanted to happen. I arrived home around 10:30 p.m., feeling quite intoxicated but not too drunk to notice the bedroom door was shut and locked. I smirked at that and knocked on the door to see if she was awake, though I doubted it. I yelled, "Fine, if this is the game you want to play, then don't expect any intimacy from me. Just deal with it." With that, I headed for the spare bedroom. The following morning, when I got up, she was sitting at the kitchen table sipping her coffee. I could tell her coffee got a bit colder when I walked in. If I hadn't known she was an unfaithful wife, I certainly would have sensed something was amiss. I gave her a friendly smile and said, "No need to get up and make breakfast, honey. I'll grab something on my way to the golf course." I then headed out of the kitchen, walked into the garage, loaded my golf clubs into the trunk, and drove off. Shortly after, my cell phone rang, and I noticed it was her calling, so I chose not to answer. A few minutes later, I heard a beep indicating she had left me a voicemail. I listened to it, and it was a message filled with anger, asking how I could do this to her, and demanding I return immediately. The truth was, I had no intention of actually going golfing. I had used that as an excuse to buy myself a few hours to handle what I needed to. My destination was my former church. The last thing I wanted was to hear Bob preach again. It was still early when I arrived, so I knew there was a good chance no one would be around, and I was correct. I entered the building, having a key since my wife worked there. I made my way directly to the offices with the goal of placing remote micro cameras and mini microphones in her office and Bob's office. It didn't take me long to set it all up, and I concealed the transmitter behind some old hymnals in the supply closet across the hall. I had the receiver in my trunk, and I wired it into my car's electrical system. This way, I could monitor their conversations and activities whenever they were in their offices, while I didn't expect them to do much at the church. I was confident that I would gather valuable information by watching and listening to them for a few days. Once I was sure everything was functioning correctly, I snooped through her desk but found nothing of significance. However, I did notice a large asterisk on her calendar for Monday, which aligned with what I had overheard on Friday. I would be prepared for whatever might happen on that day. Next, I entered Bob's office and conducted my search there. I didn't have much luck finding anything incriminating, but just when I thought I was out of options, inspiration struck. It was ironic, considering I was in a church, but I had a thought. I decided to check the filing cabinets for church expense receipts. Lo and behold, I stumbled upon a file containing several receipts from the L Inn in Roswell. Some were from the end of 2019, and a couple were from the spring of 2020. Realizing I was pushing my luck by staying too long, I hastily made copies of the receipts to take with me. I then tidied everything up and made my exit. My next move was to head over to the golf course and park in my usual spot. I made my way to the clubhouse and gravitated toward the bar. I wanted to ensure that a few people there would remember my presence. I found a table in the back and ordered a Sprite, spending a couple of hours there. During that time, I scrutinized the receipts carefully and discovered that the two from late 2019 were both for Mondays, and the two from the spring of 2020 coincided precisely with dates when I had attended a conference at CBS headquarters in New York. What infuriated me the most was that Bob had the audacity to charge those motel rooms to the church, disguising them as conference room rentals for meetings. He was renting with my wife in a motel, and I had unknowingly footed the bill while we had been contributing to the church. I decided that there would be no more donations from me. Their reckoning was drawing near, and all I needed was a bit more evidence to seal their fate. I was certain this affair had been ongoing for close to a year, if not longer, which aligned with the hints I had picked up on earlier. My hunch was that Bob had been involved with her even before she started working for him. She had a good job as a receptionist at the Telfor Corporation, but she eagerly accepted the opportunity to work for the church, saying, "Honey, it'll be so close to home, and I'll be working for the church. What could be better than that? Plus, the pay is almost as good as what I was making at Telfor. How can I pass this up?" It sounded great, closer to home, church employment, and nearly the same pay. However, it was clear she was more interested in the extra perks. I couldn't believe how blind I had been. It filled me with anger, but it also sickened me to think that my loving wife could betray me like this. I was determined to make them pay for their actions. I decided it was time to do some investigating. I went out to my car and connected my iPod to the frequency of the receiver I had in the trunk. After scrolling through a few minutes of data, I saw Bob enter his office. He picked up his phone and made a call. I regretted not having placed a bug on his phone, but there was nothing I could do about it now. I had to settle for hearing one side of the conversation. "Yes, Sharon, I'm at the church. I came right after you called me." "Why don't you tell me what's bothering you?" I thought, has he ever done this before? "I see. What do you think set him off?" Then he asked, "Do you think he's suspicious of anything?" Sharon laughed. He continued, "All right, well, you can get back at him on Monday night." After hanging up, he sat there and thought. Just as I was about to shut down the transmission, he mumbled something almost inaudible, but I managed to capture it. I made sure to save that soundbite, knowing it might come in handy later. After shutting down, I drove back home. I figured it might be a bit chilly there, so I started mowing the lawn and took care of some basement chores. When I walked in, she didn't say much to me, but the tension in the air was palpable. During dinner, I chose to ignore her, and she sat there staring at me. Eventually, she tried to start a conversation by asking what had been bothering me lately and why I had been acting strangely. I responded by reminding her that she had locked me out of our bedroom the previous night and that I rarely went out with my friends. I pointed out that the one time I did, she had become upset and made threats, so the situation was a result of her actions, not mine. In frustration, she retorted with an expletive. I noted that her language didn't align with the behavior expected of a devout Christian woman, considering her strong faith. Her reaction clearly displayed guilt on her face, and I couldn't understand how she thought I wouldn't notice. Nonetheless, she managed to regain her composure and eventually left the table. I thought to myself that when everything came to light, she wouldn't handle it gracefully. Later in the evening, she entered the family room where I was watching television with slightly reddened eyes, indicating that she might have been crying. The rest of the evening unfolded without any major incidents. When I was ready for bed, I walked down the hallway to the spare bedroom and settled in. A few minutes later, she entered the room and stood there. I asked her, "What do you want?" She inquired, "Aren't you going to come to bed?" I replied, "Nope. You've made it clear that there won't be any intimacy in the near future, so I might as well get a good night's sleep alone in here." With that, she left the room in tears. Honestly, I didn't care. On Sunday morning, she woke me up at 8 a.m., dressed for church, and invited me to join her. I declined, explaining that I had no plans to attend. She left the room with a certain look on her face, suggesting she was beginning to understand the situation. Later, she left the house, and we didn't exchange many words throughout the day, each retreating to our respective rooms. Monday morning, I left the house without encountering her or engaging in conversation. She called me, her voice heavy with tears, expressing her apologies and love. I assured her we would discuss everything upon my return that evening and hung up. Then I contacted my boss, informing him of my day off but confirming my commitment to covering the Monday night football game. He was satisfied with my availability and asked how things were going. I replied that they were proceeding as expected. My next destination was the L Inn in Roswell. Update, so there I was, walking into the motel lobby, trying to look like I was just another guy on the job. I spotted the clerk, a young dude named Kevin, who seemed more interested in his phone than the comings and goings around him. I walked up to him with a clipboard in my hand. "Hey, got a service call for the Whirlpool suite," I said, tapping on the fake work order I'd put together, some complaint about the AC making noise. "You know how it is with this heat, right?" Kevin gave the clipboard a once-over, his brow furrowing a bit. I kept my face straight, all professional-like. "Which room?" he asked, sounding a little puzzled. I told him the suite number, and for a second, I thought he might call my bluff. But then he just nodded, handed me the keycard and said, "Make it quick, all right?" I was in the room in no time, dropping my tool bag down. But instead of wrenches and gauges, I had my little high-tech gear, mics, cameras, you name it. I was playing the part of the maintenance guy. But what I was really doing was setting up my own sting operation to catch my wife in the act. Installation was a breeze. I hid them so well you'd never know they were there. I was out of the room as quickly as I'd entered, giving Kevin a nod on my way out. "All set, no more noise from that AC," I told him, and he barely glanced up from his screen. I left feeling a bit like James Bond, if I'm honest. Kevin had no idea, and I was one step closer to knowing the real deal with my wife. Wild, huh? With plenty of time on my hands, I decided to attend to a few other tasks. I needed to prepare. I visited our bank and obtained cashier's checks for half of the funds from both our checking and savings accounts. Afterward, I canceled our joint credit cards. Following that, I contacted my broker and arranged a meeting shortly after lunch to make adjustments to our investment accounts. I also reached out to my attorney to discuss the divorce and other legal matters. We scheduled an appointment for later in the afternoon when he would be available. Next, I drove to Planters National Bank in Marietta, Georgia, where I opened new accounts in my name only and deposited the cashier's checks. I had lunch in Marietta, although I didn't have much of an appetite. After finishing lunch, I headed to my broker's office to discuss the investment portfolio changes he had prepared. These changes divided our investments equally without selling any assets to avoid unwanted tax implications. I took the paperwork with me. Following that, I met with my attorney to review the divorce papers he had drafted. I proposed a no-fault divorce with an equal split of assets if my wife agreed to sign them immediately. If she refused, I had him include a provision for filing for divorce based on adultery. I was fairly confident she would sign them right away. With everything taken care of, all I had left to do was grab dinner and then head to the station to oversee the Monday Night Football broadcast. After leaving my attorney's office, I turned on my cell phone and discovered a couple of messages from Sharon. In her messages, she expressed concern and asked me to come home before the game, stating that my recent behavior was worrying her deeply. She professed her love for me and how torn apart she felt seeing me like this. Despite being aware of her plans for the evening and my own knowledge of them, she could still send me these messages. It made me question my judgment, thinking I must be the biggest fool ever to have loved and trusted this woman. I had reached a decision. The only possibility of salvaging my marriage rested on whether she would show up at the motel tonight. Her decision would be a clear indicator of whether she cared enough to try to rescue our relationship, acknowledging its precarious state. At 8 p.m., I activated the system in fully automated broadcast mode, and Monday Night Football commenced. I configured the system to monitor the feed from the motel room. Precisely at 8:15, Bob entered the room and initiated a call telling her, "Hey baby, I'm in the room. Get over here as quickly as you can." Sharon replied, "Okay honey, I'll be there in a few minutes." After ending the call, he muttered a few more words that I overheard, though I would need to listen again later to confirm the exact content. My marriage appeared to be unraveling, and while I didn't anticipate her ending it, the pain still cut deep. This experience only reinforced my determination to make them face the consequences. I took out my list of people to contact and began dialing, a task that consumed nearly half an hour. Sharon had already arrived at the motel, so I returned to monitoring the video and audio feed. She expressed, "Oh God, Bobby, the thought of you being intimate with me excites me so much. I really value these nights together," she confided. In response, Bobby invited her closer, saying, "Tonight, darling, I'm going to fulfill your desires." She responded, "I adore it when you talk passionately to me, Bobby." My heart sank, and a nauseating feeling washed over me. Here were a pastor and a church secretary, along with my once sweet and loving wife, descending into a dark abyss of depravity that I couldn't comprehend. In the moments that followed, I would witness just how twisted things could become. They both deserved the consequences that awaited them. There was no doubt about it. She positioned herself on the bed, and I couldn't bring myself to describe it any further. The person who had once been the love of my life. He finished his act, and I understood that our future together was irreparably shattered. Though consumed by agony, my seething anger kept me focused. If they had seen me in that moment, they might have cowered in fear and dread. At that point, I had lost much of my humanity. My sole purpose was to bring them to justice after enduring their actions for 45 minutes. I had seen enough. It was halftime during the football game, and it was time for the halftime show. I switched the system to live assist mode and began playing back the recording of Bob and Sharon from the beginning. Within minutes, the phone began ringing relentlessly. I chose to ignore all the calls and took out my cell phone. I dialed Sharon's number, and the ringing echoed through the monitors. She glanced at her phone and remarked, "It's Head. This time I won't answer his call. Let's see how he likes it." I hung up and dialed again. "I suppose I should answer it," she finally conceded, retrieving her phone from her purse. Sharon responded with a venomous tone when I greeted her, saying, "Hello." Curious about her whereabouts and intentions, I asked about her location and what was happening. She explained that she had gone shopping since I hadn't called her earlier and planned to grab some food before heading home. In a somewhat sarcastic tone, I inquired if she was shopping at the moment, to which she confirmed and mentioned her intention to spend a significant amount of money. Unable to hold back, I retorted by thanking her for being such a wonderful wife with a touch of sarcasm. In response, she shot back, telling me not to speak to her that way and expressing her confusion about my recent behavior before saying goodbye. There she was, using that term again. No, Sharon. The real issue was Pastor Bob in her motel room. As their activities appeared to be winding down and she was taking one last shot, I contemplated interrupting it. Knowing she wouldn't answer her cell phone again, I dialed the motel number. "Kevin, it's Head. Aren't you watching Monday Night Football?" "No?" "You should be. Could you ring the Whirlpool suite for me?" After just 2 rings, he picked up. "Hi, Bob. Can I speak to Sharon?" Once more, she came on the line, questioning why I was calling. "Well, Sharon, it's like this. I know you've been unfaithful, and I'm well aware of your location and activities. I plan to file for divorce, and you'll find yourself without a place to stay. Bob might also face some consequences." Confused, she asked, "What are you talking about, Head? I can't make sense of your recent behavior. What's going on with you?" I simply replied, "Sharon, the charade is over. I suggest you turn on Monday Night Football and enjoy the halftime show. I'll see you later. Goodbye." I watched on the live monitor as she went to the TV and tuned in to M&F. "Oh my God, no!" she screamed as she watched the streaming video of herself and Bob engaged in their activities. Due to a time delay in the live feed, she witnessed a substantial portion of what the entire Atlanta area had already seen. Her response was limited to repeating, "Oh no," as she hastily got dressed and fled the room. Bob was equally frantic to leave, uttering curses all the while. "I will kick that son of a bitch. I will kick him," he muttered, unaware that his muttered words could come back to haunt him. Once they had vacated the room, I promptly turned off the monitors and allowed the video stream to continue for 1 more minute. Then I switched off the live assist mode and returned the system to its fully automated broadcast mode. I retrieved the tape and left the broadcast booth, knowing it might be my last visit to the building. I took a few personal items from my desk as well. Final update, I spent the rest of the night at Frankie's, and yes, my performance during halftime became the hot topic at the bar. After the game concluded, I hailed a cab and headed home. When I arrived, I found Sharon sitting alone in the darkened living room. The phone had been disconnected, and it was evident that she had been sobbing uncontrollably. Her tears didn't move me. As far as I was concerned, it was all over. She cried and asked, "How could you do this to me, Head? After all these years together, how could you?" I responded firmly, "No, Sharon, the real question is, how could you do this to me? I'm drunk and I'm going to bed. We can talk tomorrow." She remained motionless as I left the room and retreated to the spare bedroom. The next morning, I woke up with a nasty hangover, and she was still on the sofa with dark circles under her eyes. It appeared she hadn't slept at all, but again, I didn't care. She had brought this upon herself. I nonchalantly put the phone back on the hook, and it immediately began ringing. For the next hour and a half, I fielded calls from family members, including her parents, friends, church acquaintances, my now ex-boss, and both of my daughters. They were deeply upset by what they had witnessed, and nothing I said could console them. I understood that it was harsh for them to have seen what they did, but they were adults and would eventually move past it. I also received a call from Mrs. Bob, who inquired about whether I had kept a tape of the entire incident. I assured her I had a copy securely stored and would provide it to her if she needed it. It was evident that everyone I had called had watched the Monday Night Football halftime show, and they didn't hesitate to let me know. Some were angry due to its explicit content, while others, like Sharon's parents, considered my actions terrible for exposing her like that. However, most people were sympathetic and understood my perspective. It was a challenging ordeal, but it was the price I had to pay for my actions. Sharon remained seated, sobbing throughout the ordeal. Eventually, I left the phone off the hook once more and went to prepare some coffee. When I returned, I offered her a cup and handed her the divorce papers and investment documents she needed to sign. I stated, "Sharon, I'm filing for divorce after discovering your infidelity and witnessing what I did last night. It's clear you've been cheating on me for at least a year or longer. There's no way I can continue in this marriage." I held up the papers. "These are the divorce documents, and if you read them, you'll see I'm requesting a no-fault divorce and proposing an equal division of our assets. To proceed with this, you must sign both the divorce agreement and the agreement for splitting our investments right now. There will be no negotiations or modifications to these documents. They are entirely fair to you." I explained, "I'll give you until 5 p.m. today to consult with an attorney and confirm that my offer is fair. At 5:01 p.m., the deal is off the table, and I'll file for divorce on the grounds of adultery. I'll seek a property distribution based on both our individual contributions, with mine being significantly greater than yours, and our respective incomes. In essence, I'll go after everything I can. Let me be clear, this is the best deal you can get, so consider it seriously." I warned her, in the end, it would be unwise to contest a divorce based on adultery when the whole of Atlanta will know it's the truth. Everyone will know you've been unfaithful. This is what you wanted. As I overheard you tell Bob, your wish has been granted and now everyone knows it. Take the deal, Sharon. Desperately, she pleaded, "Head, I love you and I want to save our marriage. Can't we try to work this out?" I responded firmly, "That may be true, Sharon, but it doesn't matter. Love is irrelevant. I won't be married to you. Our marriage ended when you chose him over me, and whether you believe it or not, that decision was made when you engaged in your affair with him. Now, I'd advise you to freshen up and consult with an attorney. Time is running out," I suggested. Later that afternoon, she returned home with the papers. "My attorney recommends that I sign these papers. Head. He believes you've made a fair offer, given the circumstances, and he thinks I should take this settlement," she said. "Head, can we talk? Can you listen to me and perhaps consider forgiveness and working together to salvage our marriage?" I agreed to sit down and listen because I genuinely wanted to understand why she had done what she did. I also wanted to know if this was the first time it had happened in our marriage. We sat at the kitchen table, and she began explaining everything. She revealed that there had been no other affairs before this one. It had started shortly before she began working for Bob. She admitted that she didn't really understand why, because she had been completely happy with me, but she couldn't deny that something had drawn her to Bob. She mentioned his charismatic demeanor and the feeling that he loved her. So, here's Sharon, everybody. She's kind of like someone saying "my bad" after messing up in marriage. She's saying sorry a lot, trying to fix her mistake with some tears and a sad face. It's like she thinks feeling bad is enough to fix everything, even after she didn't take her promises seriously. It's like when a dog chews up your homework and then acts cute, thinking you won't be mad. Tough luck, Sharon. Life's not a game, and you can't just say sorry to make it all okay. Seems like just being sorry isn't enough right now. I acknowledged Bob's charisma, but shattered her perception when I played back 2 sound clips I had saved. The first was Bob muttering on the first day, "That idiot better make sure her husband doesn't find out about our affair." The second soundbite was from the room just before she arrived. "I'm going to use her tonight. Tomorrow I'll end it. If she causes any trouble, I'll threaten to tell Head. That should keep her in line. I can't risk her husband discovering our affair and exposing everything." So Sharon, not only did you damage our marriage, but you were mistaken about Bob's feelings for you. I pointed out, "No, Sharon, there's no way I could continue our marriage for 2 reasons. First, you broke our marital vows and I can't live with that. And second, you would never find happiness with me again either. I could never satisfy you after this. No, Sharon, no matter how much love there might be between us, it wouldn't be enough to overcome the damage you've done to our marriage." She just sat there crying, knowing that what I said was the truth. In the end, she signed both sets of papers. I informed her of my decision to move out, allowing her the time she needed to find a new place to live. I didn't believe she could afford the house, and to be honest, I didn't want to stay there either. Our agreement stipulated that the house would be sold, with the profits split evenly, just like our other assets. Besides, the house held too many memories that I wanted to leave behind. I gathered the paperwork and bags I'd prepared the previous day and left the house. I headed to my broker's office to drop off the papers and then checked into a hotel for the night. The following morning, I had an appointment with my attorney. We discussed the divorce papers, and he agreed to file them with the Superior Court of our county that same day. During our meeting, we also delved into the predicament I found myself in at the radio station and with the FCC. My attorney explained that the FCC had the authority to issue civil fines, revoke broadcasting licenses, or deny renewal applications. Furthermore, those found guilty of violating these regulations in federal court could face criminal fines and a maximum prison sentence of 2 years. Given the circumstances, my attorney believed that jail time was unlikely, but substantial fines and the end of my broadcasting career were inevitable. I would have to seek a new line of work. In just a matter of days, the consequences of my actions became painfully apparent. I was served with legal notices from the FCC and had to prepare for several days in court to defend myself. I won't bore you with the intricate details of the case, but suffice it to say that the fine imposed on me amounted to nearly a year's worth of my salary, depleting my savings account. Even worse, my broadcasting license was revoked, and I would be prohibited from working in my field for the next 2 years. However, there was a silver lining to this dark cloud. TT had watched Monday Night Football as well, and despite the illegality and vindictiveness of my actions, he showed me compassion. He offered me a job with responsibilities that complied with the FCC's restrictions. It seemed that he had experienced his own share of troubles in his recent divorce, particularly at the hands of Henry's daughter and Peter's sister, which may have softened his stance towards me. I suppose I did have one thing to thank HJ for in the end. Bob confronted me once at Frankie's. He seemed ready to throw a punch, but somehow I managed to hold one of his arms tightly. "Listen, Bob, I don't ever want to hear from you again. Is that clear?" I stated firmly. He grumbled, "Fine with me." I felt like giving him a final kick. "Bob, I possess an audio recording of you making threats against me. If I take that to the police, I believe I have every right to obtain a restraining order against you and possibly press assault charges. With the evidence on hand, you could end up serving time in prison. Is that what you want?" He shook his head in disagreement. As I delivered one more kick for emphasis, I added, "Well then, I suppose this will be our last interaction." He is no longer a pastor. He lost his job with the church, and the denomination revoked his license and nullified his ordination. The last I heard, he was working at a city travel agency. His wife divorced him on grounds of adultery, and she received a substantial settlement. I'm moving forward with my life. It's not perfect, but I'm finding ways to be happy. I've dated a few women over the past several months, but haven't gotten into a serious relationship. When the right woman comes along, I'll marry her. I know it's just a matter of time, and I'm willing to invest the time to find the right person for me. I occasionally run into Sharon. We both attended Stephanie's college graduation and the baptism of Melanie's first baby. I was polite, but I made it crystal clear that I had no interest in friendship or any kind of relationship with her. It was evident to me that she wasn't happy. I could see she was emotionally suffering from our breakup and regretted her actions. However, the issue was not her regret, but her betrayal of me in our marriage. If I were a different person, maybe I could have forgiven her, but my values are quite inflexible, and there wasn't much room for compromise. She will have to live the rest of her life with the knowledge that what she sacrificed for her affair with Bob was me and our life together. I was just an ordinary man who loved her deeply, but she chose to discard it all. Yes, she let go of me. Regrettably for her, she also forfeited any semblance of respectability, as anyone who witnessed her infamous performance during the Monday Night Football halftime show knows that she is an unfaithful wife. Rumors suggest that she receives numerous date offers. To her credit, she has declined them all. It's not a very fulfilling way to live life, but I didn't do this to her. She brought it upon herself.
Story 3.
I stood in a dim corner of the ballroom, observing a couple swaying on the dance floor, their eyes fixed on each other. As her partner drew her closer, the woman's chest rose and fell, her small frame pressed against his large one. Their movements were graceful, he with the agility of an athlete, she following suit admirably. All eyes were on them, sensing a strong emotional connection, perhaps not love, but certainly more than friendship. Her honey blonde hair cascaded gently as she leaned into him, though her proximity was more a result of his firm grip than her own choice. I might have been envious of their bond if the woman weren't my wife of 11 years, now in the embrace of her boss. Instead, I felt a surge of anger and humiliation. It wasn't the first time we'd attended her company's annual awards banquet, and everyone there knew she was married to me. I noticed people searching for me, anticipating the inevitable confrontation. After 3 dances, they left the dance floor together, joining colleagues at a central table. I watched as she gazed at him with the same fervor she once reserved for me. Though it had been some time since I'd seen that look, the revulsion inside me only grew. All I could think was that the eruption was imminent. The pressure was building, but I just had to hold on a little longer. I grappled with the conflict between my current feelings of fear, hatred, and resentment towards the scene unfolding before me and the love, respect, and trust I once held for my beloved wife. It was a battle I found myself losing despite my efforts to overcome these emotions. Now, I was sinking into despair and self-pity, bowing my head in defeat. Over the past months, I had exerted immense effort to win her back and mend the fractures in our marriage. I meticulously planned date nights, attended to household chores, switched off the TV, and attempted to engage in conversation, only to have her walk away. I left flowers, heartfelt notes, and love-filled cards, only to discover them discarded in the trash. Even sending flowers to her workplace yielded no response. What more could I do but wait? I wondered to myself. Pushing these distressing thoughts aside, I made my way back to the makeshift bar nestled in the corner of the room, standing behind Mary Ann, an acquaintance of my wife's from her previous workplace. "Having a good time?" I asked, striving to appear nonchalant. "I always enjoy these yearly gatherings." "Harold sure does love those free drinks," she responded. I offered a smile and nodded, lifting my empty glass. "Me too. By the way, I haven't spotted Jason's wife around. Any idea where she might be?" I hoped my anxiety didn't betray me. "She always dresses so elegantly and is delightful to converse with." "Oh, didn't Kels mention that today Jason served her with divorce papers?" "I guess she was neglecting her marital responsibilities," Mary Ann blurted out, her words lacking much filter as she reached a certain level of intoxication. I found her lack of restraint rather fitting. "No, I don't think so, especially since it's Friday night and all. We came straight here after I finished work, and there wasn't any time for gossiping. I didn't just stretch the truth, it was a blatant lie. We even took the afternoon off to prepare for tonight." "She had plenty of opportunity to bring it up, but she chose not to," I replied, refilling my Captain and diet and fetching a glass of white wine for Kelsey before making my way over to where she and Jason were standing. They were so engrossed in each other that they didn't notice my approach. "Kels, I brought you a glass of wine," I said, handing her the drink. She jumped slightly at the sound of my voice. "Oh, you startled me," she exclaimed, taking the glass. "Thank you, dear." The rest of us felt increasingly uneasy the longer we lingered. Most people suddenly found the tablecloth quite captivating or discovered something fascinating across the room, avoiding direct eye contact. Others stared, likely pondering my thoughts and how oblivious I appeared. A younger guy, approximately 25 years old, even flashed a grin when he noticed me eyeing the table. We locked gazes for a moment before his smile faded, and he, too, suddenly found the tablecloth fascinating. Approaching 1 o'clock in the morning, many guests had already departed from the hotel hall, heading home. However, it was evident that Kelsey wasn't quite ready to part ways with her dance partner. "We should probably head home, honey. I still need to drop off the babysitter, and we promised we wouldn't keep her past 2 tonight," I mentioned, realizing I was intruding on her time with Jason. "Sure, okay. I think it's time for us to leave. See you on Monday," she said with a smile. Relief washed over all of us as the awkwardness neared its end. "Jason, it was nice seeing you," I added, extending my hand for a shake, which he returned. He had a firm grip, evidently trying to assert his strength. Standing 3 inches taller than my 6 feet, he was outweighed by about 15 pounds, and I noticed a slight paunch on my stomach. Pressing a bit firmer than usual, I met his gaze, sensing deceit and self-righteousness in his eyes. Eventually, he released my hand and bid us goodnight. I waved to the remaining guests as we exited the room and headed to the car. We remained silent during the drive home, although Kelsey wore a radiant smile. Upon arriving home, Kelsey checked on Caitlin, our 9-year-old daughter, while I settled up with Brittany and prepared to take her home. Upon my return, I headed to the bedroom to find Kelsey, already asleep in bed. After checking on Caitlin, I visited the bathroom before retiring to the spare room for the night. I knew any possibility of closeness between us was out of the question tonight, as I struggled to recall the last time we had been carnal. With my eyes closing, the ceiling was the last thing I saw before slipping into a restless sleep. Rising early on Saturday morning, I mentally went through my checklist for the day. Caitlin was already in the living room engrossed in her shows, and I offered a slight wave from the doorway. "Have you had breakfast yet?" I inquired. "Yep," she confirmed, waving a spoon dripping with milk, splattering drops onto the carpet. "All right, settle down. Mom's still sleeping and I need to get to work in my office, I reminded her. Got it, Dad, she replied with unnecessary volume, causing me to chuckle. Around 8:30, I dialed my lawyer's cell phone, knowing he often worked from home on Saturday mornings. Good morning, Bill. It's Matthew Franks, I greeted. Morning, Matt. I'm guessing this isn't a cheery call, he responded, already anticipating the nature of the conversation. You got it. It's time to set the plan in motion. I've learned that Jason served his wife yesterday. Any word if Kelsey has consulted with a lawyer yet? I don't think so, but I'll double check. Let's meet at the coffee shop in half an hour. Make sure to sign and date the forms with my assistant for notarization. We'll file the paperwork first thing Monday morning and serve her at lunch. Bill outlined the plan. Sounds good to me. See you soon, I confirmed before ending the call. Arriving early at the coffee shop, I offered a faint smile to the person behind the counter before collecting my order and settling into a cozy chair by the fireplace. Lost in thought. I never imagined I'd be divorcing the one true love of my life. It's challenging to pinpoint the exact moment when you realize your comfortable life is unraveling. For me, it was triggered by a traffic ticket, one of those automatic camera checks for running a red light. When the notice arrived in the mail, I chuckled, instantly recognizing it as Kelsey's doing. She always flipped on her headlights when in a rush. I opened the envelope, deciding to silently shed tears instead of speaking. It seemed futile to confront this directly. The photo depicted Kelsey with a man's shoulder and arm visible beside her. Though his face wasn't visible, I knew who it was. Nothing seemed particularly suspicious. She could have been at lunch or a meeting. I checked the date, March 5th, and something about it bothered me. Recalling our text messages, I remembered plans to stop by Mary's after work to pick up clothes for Kate. At the time, it didn't strike me as unusual. Despite my suspicions, I dismissed them, attributing it to Mary's usual generosity. Checking the intersection on Google Maps revealed it was on the opposite end of town from Mary's residence. Still, I tried to convince myself it could be innocent. However, as I pieced together events since late November, doubts grew. Kelsey had kept a low profile, and holiday arguments became commonplace. By January, affection dwindled, and our conversations revolved around work or Caitlin. We no longer discussed our dreams, family vacations, or our future together. Since childhood, I've had a trust fund. Initially, my great-grandfather purchased undeveloped land in the Pacific Northwest, selling portions as the local town expanded. Upon his passing, I inherited proceeds from these sales, boosting the fund. Following my grandfather's pass away, it grew once more. Thankfully, my family's self-sufficiency meant I never had to dip into it. The balance stabilized and even grew slightly through accrued interest. Upon my father's demise, with my mother also deceased, I inherited all family property, merging it with my trust. With our accumulated wealth, we were on the verge of settling for life. However, Kelsey and I continued to work and increase our net worth. In anticipation of retirement, I obtained a prenuptial agreement to safeguard the fund. Throughout our marriage, Kelsey and I regularly updated our prenup and wills. One clause that remained unchanged was the standard divorce clause, delineating asset ownership. We also included a provision for Caitlin's education in case of my pass away or divorce, with specific conditions regarding the circumstances. To ensure preparedness, I maintained access to legal and accounting services. Seeking advice, I reached out to my lawyer for a referral to the best local divorce attorney, scheduling a consultation later in the week to explore my options. Given our sturdy prenup, he remained unworried about potential financial concerns. I clarified that while I wasn't ready to take drastic action yet, I sought guidance on the next steps. Well, Matt, one option is to hire a private investigator to delve into the situation and ascertain if there's cause for concern. Unfortunately, all my PIs are currently tied up with other cases. It'll be several weeks before they can prioritize yours. But I'm not keen on waiting. This is already keeping me up at night. Are there any other avenues we could explore? There is one possibility, albeit a somewhat dubious one. He's trying to turn over a new leaf, but he's not exactly the most trustworthy character. We affectionately refer to him as Larry the Rogue, Bill elaborated. He's a former cop who got the boot due to complaints and some shady dealings. He could get started immediately, but I'm hesitant to recommend a long-term partnership with him. Why the nickname? I inquired with a chuckle. I want to ensure everything is above board, so if we uncover anything, we're on solid legal footing. If we need to proceed, that's fine. Is he legit? I understand he has a knack for obtaining evidence such as detailed photos, videos, emails, and phone conversations that, let's say, tread the fine line of what's admissible in court. but I've heard his findings are ultimately conclusive proof of infidelity, one way or another. All right, as long as it's within legal bounds, we can settle with him for now and transition to a more reputable private investigator in a couple of weeks, I mused. Pausing, I added, "Do you reckon he can kick things off today? I'll give him a call and find out. I'll keep you posted here in the office. Sound good?" I handled a stack of paperwork for both the lawyer and the dubious investigator, facilitated his connection with my accountant, and kept the retainer fee separate from my personal account to ensure Kelsey remained unaware of my actions. I didn't want to alarm her, especially if this turmoil in our marriage was just a passing phase. Meanwhile, amidst these proceedings, I endeavored to mend my relationship with my wife. Life had taught me that significant changes and out-of-character actions usually have underlying causes. Uncertain about what drove my wife's behavior and whether we were beyond reconciliation, I resolved to fulfill my husbandly duties. Taking matters into my own hands, I showered her with affection and aimed to become the epitome of a loving and supportive husband. Yet, my efforts were met with rejection at every turn, signaling that we may have reached an irreversible breaking point. One Thursday afternoon, I was summoned to my lawyer's office to review the findings unearthed by the rogue investigator. I was presented with hours of footage capturing their liaisons, carnal encounters, and apparent bliss as a couple. Accompanied by photographs, call logs, and personal correspondence, the evidence left me both impressed and repulsed by the rogue's methods, affirming the appropriateness of his moniker. I sat there devastated. The idea of Kelsey having an affair with Jason Stanton was inconceivable to me. I could see the appeal of Jason, tall, handsome, and well-built, with a promising career trajectory. Taking charge of Kelsey's department as his personal assistant about a year ago, he had ample opportunity to integrate into her life. A former college baseball star sidelined by a shoulder injury in his senior year, Jason's achievements were impressive, but I never imagined Kelsey allowing him to wedge between us. The weight of it all was crushing. I struggled to breathe, my chest constricted, my vision blurred, and I felt lightheaded. Pushing my chair back, I leaned forward, trying to steady my breath. Inhaling and exhaling deeply, I fought to regain clarity of mind. The sense of loss and emptiness was indescribable. I had lost my confidant, my partner, my lover, and the mother of my child. In that moment, I saw no way forward. Then it worsened. He played back the recording from the day before, revealing why he had gathered us all together. "Really? Do you love me?" Her voice was tinged with excitement. "Yes, my dear. You're perfect. I love you and want us to be a family." "You mean you, me, and Caitlin?" "Exactly. What about Matt and Shannon?" "We'll divorce them, you'll have Caitlin, and we'll be happy together." A stunned silence followed as Kelsey processed the bombshell her lover had dropped. "You really love me, Kels?" "Yes, absolutely. I hadn't really considered leaving Matt." "Consider it for a moment. He can't offer you what I can. You'll be the belle of every ball, part of the elite. You'll experience places and luxuries he could only dream of." I detected the disdain in his tone, picturing the disdainful expression on his face. "Losing Kate would devastate him. We're his world. I'll be a far better father than he could ever be. In a year, she won't even want to visit him. Why do you despise him so much? What has he done to you?" Her voice held a touch of concern. Truthfully, I wondered the same. "He's not worthy of you, Kels. He lacks ambition, content to remain stagnant. He's just a cog enriching someone else. Did you know he's a plant manager? His facility employs 400 people, boasting the highest production and revenue per square foot." I felt a twinge of pride that Kelsey was aware, though I would have preferred this discussion in their own dining room rather than a hotel room. "He's weak, a beta without drive or ambition, never even pursued an MBA. He served his purpose, honey. I could easily crush him any day of the week." "Jason, don't assume you're superior to Matt. He's not weak. You don't know his backstory. He associated with rough crowds and is skilled with firearms. He nearly took a dark path but chose education. That's why he delayed college after high school." "Now," she seemed to boast, "he's stronger and tougher than you realize. Promise me you won't resort to violence. I don't want either of you getting hurt. Matt's for Kate's sake, and you're for mine. But I'm not. I'm in love with him." I wished it were true. "But you replaced him as my man." "My love." She paused, pondering. "How will it work when we divorce them simultaneously? I need to prepare before serving Shannon. Given her mental health issues and our year-long celibacy, it shouldn't be challenging. I'll split everything 50-50. She's unlikely to object." Okay, but you must file for Shannon before I consult a lawyer. She was resolute. It seemed she aimed to ensure her stability and not risk her comfortable life, even for her true love's sake. Come here, woman, I motioned, requesting the recording be turned off. At this juncture, listening was unnecessary. I glanced at Bill, grappling with how to handle this. You strike first, Matt. But what if she changes her mind? They rarely do that, Mr. Franks, he remarked solemnly. I'm afraid they've reached a point where nothing you do or say will sway them, Bill added. I observed the scoundrel closely for the first time. He appeared to be in his 30s, fit, and his suit was impeccably tailored, quite unlike my preconceptions. Respectful and seemingly insightful, I began to view him more as Larry than the scoundrel. It seemed he genuinely cared, despite being paid for his services. Would you still want her after knowing all this? Larry inquired, echoing Bill's sentiments. You're probably right, Larry, I acknowledged, turning to Bill. Give me a day or two to decide, and I'll be in touch. All right, sounds good, Matt. Shall we draft the documents now and finalize details later, or halt the process if needed? Bill proposed. Yes, let's proceed that way, I agreed. Larry handed me his business card as we concluded. Here's my personal number, Mr. Franks, in case you ever need me. Please, Larry, call me Matt, I insisted. Thank you, Matt. If you decide to pursue revenge, I know some people who could assist. After all, they don't call me Larry the Dastard for nothing, he remarked with a grin. Appreciative but uncertain, I responded, Nice meeting you, Larry. I'll reach out if I need assistance. Though I doubt I could go through with it against Kells, it's reassuring to know I have support if I choose that path. With a smile, Larry bid farewell and departed in his car. Throughout the weekend, I grappled with my decision, struggling to focus on anything else. It seemed Kelsey was oblivious to the gravity of the situation, having already decided our family's fate. Doubt, anger, fear, and disappointment consumed me, particularly the loss of my identity and family. Caitlin's future weighed heavily on my mind, aggravated by the thought of this arrogant man raising her. Emotions ran rampant, leaving me in a fog of confusion until Sunday morning, when clarity dawned. Sitting on the back porch with a pounding headache, it dawned on me that this fate was inevitable, regardless of my resistance. I'd already lost my wife and family. Now, it was a matter of how and on whose terms. The saying, lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way, resonated with me. I refused to step aside or follow these schemers. There was only one option left, to lead. On Monday morning, I phoned Bill. Bill, it's Matt Franks calling. Good morning, Matt. Any progress on finding a solution? Yes, I'd like you to complete all the necessary paperwork, including only the legal photos Larry obtained. Split everything evenly. I hesitated. Do you think we should sell the house? Yes, we used a low-interest loan from my trust to purchase it, so essentially we've been paying ourselves all along. We'll divide any proceeds from the sale, but I'll repay the full loan amount and the accumulated interest. Also, please allocate $200,000 from my trust to Kells as a considerate payment for her services. It might soften her stance if she knows she won't be left destitute. I'm seeking primary custody of Kate. I understand it won't be simple, but perhaps Larry can uncover some damning information about Jason that diminishes his suitability as a father figure. I've heard he was quite the fraternity standout in college. Maybe he got carried away with some of his exploits. Please have Larry investigate. I have a contingency plan for Kate. If primary custody isn't granted, draft the most generous shared custody arrangement imaginable for me. I paused to allow Bill to catch up. Additionally, I intend to file a lawsuit against Jason for alienation of love and affection. I want to involve his wife, Shannon, in this ordeal as well, ensuring she's fully informed of the situation within legal bounds. On that note, I'd like you to devise another infidelity divorce plan for her. I'll cover the expenses. While we can serve them both in the exclusion room, it's unlikely to yield significant results. I'll also need Shannon to sign a contract with me. I can start drafting the forms, but without her consent or details, I'm unable to proceed further. Bill clarified, I see what you're aiming for. It's about stirring the pot a bit, and while we're at it, I want to sue Kelsey's employer for permitting her affair with her boss. While there may not be a moral clause in their manual, it's dubious for any company to overlook such misconduct under their supervision, especially given his position as her direct superior. It's doubtful this will go far, but let's rattle the cage and see what unfolds. Understood, Matt. This will incur substantial costs up front and potentially escalate. We're looking at extensive manpower here, and if this escalates further, I want to ensure they don't profit unjustly. As my dad used to say, engaging a lawyer is essentially negotiating the price. Bill chuckled at my sarcastic remark about lawyers, remarking, Your dad was a wise man indeed. Remember, You're not obligated to provide her any funds from your trust. Your prenuptial agreement is rock solid. I understand, Bill. But after reflecting on it over the weekend, I've decided that if I don't leave her in financial straits, she might be more inclined to meet my terms. And truthfully, she deserves it. She put in hard work and supported me. We were both saving for our future together. I figured it might give her an edge over Jason so she won't have to rely on him as much when she's on her own. She deserves better. But there's no way I'm giving that cheating scoundrel Jason more than he's already taken from me in life. I mean, my wife should have been enough. As I spoke, I felt a surge of anger, thinking about how Jason had seized the life that should have been mine. Despite the circumstances, I always strived to be fair in my relationships and wanted to ensure I treated Kelsey with fairness, even if she didn't reciprocate. My solace is knowing that Caitlin will understand my actions later on when she sees how our family fell apart. Before I forget, Bill, hold off on any filings for now. I want everything prepared and ready to go, but I prefer to wait for her to make the initial move. This way, I'll have more time with Kate in our family home. I know there will come a point when I have to act, but I want to delay until the very last moment when I can't bear it any longer. Got it. We'll keep everything undated and notarized until you're ready. I work from home on Saturday mornings, so feel free to call me then too. We can't file until Monday morning anyway, but I'll have someone ready to serve them as soon as the doors open. Okay, that's the plan. Goodbye for now. I retrieved Larry's business card from my pocket and dialed the number. Larry, it's Matt Franks. How's it going? I'm good, he replied. Are you ready for some dirty work? Well, kind of, but I need you to hold off until I give the green light. No problem, Matt. What's the game plan? Can we meet up? Yes, give me an hour. Sounds good, I responded. I was already waiting when he pulled into the parking lot. After grabbing some coffee and a snack, he sat across from me. I want to gather all the damning evidence. Photos, videos, recordings, everything. And we need to figure out a way to anonymously send it to Shannon Stanton, perhaps through email. No problem. I know someone who operates on the dark web, Larry said, and that's it. How about posting a video on a XXX site or sending nasty messages to Kelsey's parents or co-workers? Man, he's devious, I thought. No, Kels still has to stay in town. I wouldn't want her to be so humiliated that she leaves town with Kate. And despite everything, I still love her, even if she doesn't love me anymore. I slid an envelope containing $5,000 in cash across the table. This should help you get started, but let me know if you need more. Larry accepted the money and glanced at me. I think $3,000 will suffice. He may be tough, but at least he's straightforward. Consider the rest as an advance. I might require your expertise later. Remember, stay on standby until I contact you. I want to catch them off guard, and I have my reasons for allowing them to make the first move. Oh, and we also need to gather information on his wife's health issues. Her medical background could impact our decisions down the line. Can you handle that? Absolutely, Larry replied. And Bill mentioned you were looking into Jason's college years. I'm hoping to uncover something useful if custody becomes a battle. Larry nodded, jotting down a few notes on his pad. After finishing our coffee and exchanging stories about his past experiences as a cop and people we might have known, we shook hands and parted ways. That was 3 months ago. My thoughts returned to the present as Bill arrived, followed shortly by his assistant and Larry. Ready to proceed? Bill inquired once we were all seated. Yes, it seems that way. Larry, do we have any indication if Kelsey has sought legal counsel? As far as I know, no, I replied. I quickly checked her email after Bill's call and didn't find anything. I'll take a closer look today and should know by Monday morning. Larry grinned and gave me a knowing wink. And what about Jason? Any skeletons in his closet? I asked with a glimmer of hope. Well, he was under investigation during his time in the fraternity. Allegations involving date abduction medications and underage girls at parties, Larry revealed. I've received copies of everything and have already handed them over to Bill, I informed the group. Bill glanced up, confirming, I have them in case we need them for the custody hearing. Retrieving the documents we had been diligently working on for the past few months, he indicated where I needed to sign. After signing, Bill's assistant notarized them, and I turned to address the group. Larry, can you find out who Shannon Stanton has hired as her lawyer and inform Bill? Bill, if he's competent, could you share our legal file with him? What if he's not up to par? Bill inquired. Then we'll figure out a way to connect you with Shannon. But I prefer we handle it properly. Bill, can I collect the documents on Monday afternoon? I plan to hand the paperwork to Kelsey personally first, informing her of the situation, and then you can officially serve her on Tuesday. Bill nodded understandingly and conferred with his assistant about preparing the server for Tuesday. I believe we can begin reaching out to Shannon since she'll likely be updated soon. Bill, you can share the file with Shannon's lawyer on Monday afternoon, provided it doesn't interfere with my discussion with Kelsey on Monday evening. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling deeply. Things should be fully underway by Wednesday. Matt, have you considered where Kelsey will stay on Monday night? Bill inquired suddenly. Would it be an issue for her to stay at the house for a few days? No, unless a restraining order is obtained and she consents, I wouldn't share a bed with her. Legally, it shouldn't be an issue, but it might make you uneasy. I'd worry about how a less scrupulous lawyer might exploit this information, Bill added. All right. I'll give her a week to find alternate accommodations. We're not carnal at the moment, so I don't foresee any issues. Oh, you mean sharing the same bed? But our documents grant me temporary control of the house and custody of Kate, right? Yes, until her attorney files a motion to overturn the arrangement, or until we all reach a consensus. I meant actually sharing the same bed. It might give off an odd vibe, Bill explained. Don't worry, we're not sharing a bed currently. Hey Larry, what did you uncover about Shannon's health? She's been battling depression and bipolar disorder for years. Apparently, the medications have dampened her libido, so Mr. Wonderful went searching elsewhere. I'm not sure we want to know how you obtained this information, I remarked. Larry simply grinned and shook his head while Bill pretended to be shocked. Bill, does this have any relevance to our situation? I inquired. Not at the moment. It might become significant later when we address guardianship and determine living arrangements, Bill clarified. As Bill jotted down notes on his iPad, we conversed for a few more minutes before gradually concluding our strategy session and resuming our respective tasks for the day. I felt somewhat disheartened for the remainder of the weekend, weighed down by the impending responsibilities awaiting me on Monday. Kelsey remained oblivious to any changes, as expected. On Sunday, I arranged for my aunt to pick up Caitlin from school on Monday and care for her overnight, allowing me to discuss important family matters with Kelsey. They resided on a farm outside the city, and Caitlin enjoyed playing with their dogs and tending to the animals. She'll be taking Caitlin to school on Tuesday, and I've decided we'll break the news to Caitlin on Tuesday evening. I informed Caitlin about these arrangements, and while she was excited, she seemed a bit puzzled about why she had to wait until Tuesday. I simply explained that Mom and Dad needed some personal time to discuss everything. She reluctantly accepted it. I slept in the spare room again, and once more Kelsey didn't mention it. She visibly sighed with relief when she saw me heading there before bed. As I lay there Sunday night, running through my checklist and reviewing my plan, I eventually drifted off to sleep. On Monday morning, I contacted my VP of operations and requested a week off. I also reached out to my assistant and senior production manager to provide them with any necessary details while I was away. Around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I entered Bill's office and unexpectedly found Larry there. I noticed a stack of papers on the desk, and the bustling activity in the office indicated that everyone was occupied. Matt, we filed the paperwork at the courthouse this morning, and here are Kelsey's documents as you requested. We've arranged for the official filing at your home around 9 a.m. on Tuesday. Is that suitable? Bill inquired, handing me the envelopes. Yes, that should work. I'll try to persuade her to take the rest of the week off. I'll let you know if that changes, I responded. Great, that's settled. Bill paused momentarily to gather his thoughts before continuing. Larry found Shannon's lawyer, and he's quite competent. So I forwarded him our files, and he seemed quite eager. He might counter-sue for infidelity and aim for a larger share of their assets than just a 50-50 split. He assured me he won't take any action until tomorrow morning. So everything seems fine. Okay, gentlemen, are we forgetting anything? I inquired. Just a little update. It appears Kelsey has an appointment with her lawyer next week, based on her calls and emails. And Matt, please don't hesitate to reach out if you need further assistance, all right? Larry asked cautiously, earning another sharp glance from Bill regarding the ongoing situation. Great, sounds good, I responded, hoping I wouldn't have to delve any deeper into this mess. I guess it's all in Kelsey and Jason's hands now. Leaving Bill's office, I sent a text to Kelsey. Kels, will you be home by 5:30 tonight? Why? What's going on? She replied. Nothing serious. I was a bit preoccupied over the weekend and wanted to catch up tonight. I arranged for Aunt Alex to pick up Kate and keep her overnight. I thought I'd bring dinner home. Any requests? How thoughtful. Ready? I'll have dinner ready at 5:30. I felt guilty for setting her up like this, but it had become a common occurrence for me lately. I hoped she would interpret it as me making an extra effort to be affectionate. Kelsey arrived home around 5:15 and changed while I set the table and served the food. I poured us each a glass of wine and sat at the table, waiting for her. She took a long sip from her glass as she joined me. We shared the food and engaged in light conversation, and she seemed completely unaware of what was about to unfold. "What's your schedule like for the rest of the week?" I inquired after we finished eating, both of us freely picking at our favorite dishes. "Do you want to make plans?" she asked, glancing at me sideways. "No, I thought you might want to take a week off after we talk," I stated in a flat tone, trying to keep any emotion out of my voice. "Why should I do that?" "You'll understand, Kels," I said, placing the envelope on the table in front of her. She glanced at it and then back at me, taking another sip of wine. "I'm aware of Jason and your intentions to file for divorce," I stated bluntly. She coughed slightly, surprised, and stared at me with a blank expression. I could see her mind working, trying to comprehend how I found out and what actions she could take to slow me down. "What scam?" she finally grasped, referring to the meeting with the lawyer next week and Jason's filing against Shannon. "I know you're in love with him and plan to take Kate and leave me." I opened the bag and slid some photos toward her. Her eyes widened as she set her glass down and picked up the photos, scanning through them. I noticed her eyes glistening and heard her start to hiccup slightly, a sign of her emotional distress. "I'm so sorry, Matthew. I never wanted any of this to happen. I don't know what else to say," she murmured, her gaze fixed on the table. "I understand, Kels. I've been aware of your intentions for months now. I've had time to come to terms with it to some extent. It's incredibly disappointing and painful for me," I responded solemnly. I took a moment to compose myself, attempting to control my rising anger. "The only thing I need to know is if there's something I did or didn't do that pushed you toward Jason," I pressed. "Oh God, no," she exclaimed, meeting my gaze briefly before looking away. "I think it just happened out of guilt and shame. You didn't do anything. You were a wonderful husband and father. I just fell for him," she confessed, her voice breaking. I felt a mix of disappointment and relief. It seemed there was nothing I could do. If she had simply fallen out of love with me and chosen Jason, he had evidently taken enough time to win her over and push me out, leaving me powerless to stop it. Our marriage had reached its end, and all that remained was paperwork. I presented the terms of the divorce and handed them to her. "Here's the proposed agreement. I've already filed my application, so you won't need to do that. If you agree to my terms, the main points include upholding the prenuptial agreement, meaning my trust is off the table. I'm offering to sell off our joint assets and split them equally, including the house. Since I filed first, I'm requesting full custody of Caitlin and minimal child support. Of course, you'll have a flexible visitation schedule. I'll keep her on my insurance, but you'll need to arrange for your own. You can keep your $401K and any investments from the marriage, as well as the inheritance from your mom. I don't want to take what's rightfully yours. We'll divide the investments we made together. Kate and I will remain in the house until it's sold. Additionally, I'm providing $200,000 from my trust to help you get settled. I suggest you create a prenuptial agreement to safeguard your assets if you proceed with Jason. I want to ensure you're self-sufficient, so I'm not asking for spousal support." I paused to let her process what I'd outlined. "I think I should have custody of Caitlin. She'll need her mother as she grows up," she asserted. "I wholeheartedly agree. But you can be involved through visits and calls. Frankly, I don't trust Jason with our daughter. I know he plans to win her over with gifts and charm. Since he couldn't have his own child, he wants mine. I'm already generous in letting him have you, but he won't have our daughter. I understand you'll want to discuss custody further. Let's let the lawyers handle it and try to keep it civil. I offered custody as a peace offering after seeing Kate's reaction during her discussion with Jason. He wouldn't damage her, but that's for you to decide. Separating her from her mother isn't the solution. For now, she'll stay with me until we find a better arrangement. You can stay in the master bedroom for a few nights or a week while you figure things out." "Kelsey, my love for you hasn't wavered. I envisioned us conquering the world together, but your actions are tearing me apart, and I'm at a loss. My world feels like it's crumbling, and I'm striving to handle this with fairness and kindness. I genuinely don't want to inflict the pain on you that I'm feeling. But trust me, if you escalate things or let Jason meddle, I won't hesitate to respond in kind. And dear, I have resources at my disposal that neither of you possess." My demeanor shifted and she could sense the frustration in my voice. I can play hardball if pushed. You've seen this side of me before, so please, let's keep this conflict at a manageable level and allow the lawyers to navigate it. I truly want to maintain civility and respect in our interactions. It's crucial for Caitlin to see us being civil. I envision both of us playing active roles in our daughter's life. I implore you. I don't want our situation to devolve into a prolonged, bitter battle. I'm available until the end of the week, and according to legal protocol, you must be formally served, which is set to happen here at the house at 9 a.m. I didn't want to put you in an awkward spot at work, so you may want to consider taking a few days off as well. I know it'll be tough for both of us to share the same space, but I thought perhaps we could sit down with Caitlin tomorrow night or keep her home on Wednesday to explain the situation. What are your thoughts? Kelsey had lost her appetite and appeared visibly unwell, perhaps realizing the gravity of her actions. She had no one to blame but herself. I was content and oblivious until she disrupted it all. She glanced at me, looking bewildered, and conceded, "Matt, you clearly had a plan and outmaneuvered us. I'm not sure how, but you did. I'll notify work first thing and be home until Wednesday at least." "Do you think Aunt Alex can keep Caitlin tomorrow night too? Maybe we'll keep her home from school tomorrow and bring her back Wednesday morning so we can talk." My investigator, Larry, uncovered everything after I sensed something was amiss. "I'll call Aunt Alex right away. It seems like a good idea." Kelsey gave a subtle nod when I mentioned Larry, while she gathered some papers. I bid her goodnight and assumed she needed time alone to process. I watched as she retreated to the master bedroom, locking the door, which didn't bother me, as I had already moved most of my belongings to the spare room. I phoned my aunt, explaining the family situation, and she agreed to keep Caitlin an extra night, dropping her off Wednesday morning. I also informed Caitlin, who was puzzled but accepting. I assured her that my mom and I would explain everything. On Wednesday, as I tidied up and prepared for bed, I heard Kelsey murmuring on the phone behind the closed door, followed by quiet sobs as she mourned our broken marriage. Early the next morning, I heard Kelsey downstairs, getting ready for work. At precisely 9 a.m., she accepted the package, excluding the sensitive materials. Shortly after, she grabbed her belongings and left without specifying her destination, presumably to meet Jason, her lawyer, or someone else sympathetic to her plight. Later in the day, Bill called to update me that both Jason and their company had received our legal claims. Surprisingly, Shannon had also countersued Jason around the same time. Bill stressed the importance of remaining vigilant, as Jason had apparently made threats against me. Although I never anticipated Jason acting recklessly given his gains, I took precautions. I retrieved my .45 ACP from the weapon safe, ensured it was loaded, cocked, and locked, then placed it on the chair while I watched TV. A few hours later, while standing at the sink, I spotted a black BMW pulling into my driveway, with an enraged Jason jumping out and retrieving a baseball bat from the back. Sensing danger, I hurried back to my chair where my cell phone was and dialed emergency. Feeling safer with the door locked, I reported to the operator that my wife's boyfriend was in the driveway with a baseball bat. As I heard a second car pull up outside, accompanied by screams and voices indicating Kelsey's presence, a high-pitched screech pierced the air. I jumped as my front door shattered from the impact, and Jason burst inside, screaming threats at the top of his lungs. With my hand on the pistol grip, I remained calm. Jason swung the bat wildly as Kelsey screamed outside, pleading with him to stop. "I took your wife, and now I will eliminate you and take your daughter too," he yelled furiously. I allowed him to advance another 5 feet before drawing my weapon. His narrowed eyes indicated poor judgment. Although his bat was raised above his head, it seemed unlikely to be effective. At a distance of 25 feet, the weapon shot from the chamber was deafening. I was trained to aim for my targets 3 times, relying on instinct. The second shot followed a split second after the first. Jason slowed down, perhaps due to momentum, and stumbled by the time the third round was fired. Though I noticed movement at the door, I remained focused on my task. The bullet pierced the splintered front door, narrowly missing Kelsey's head. She escaped without injury. Jason fell to his knees before collapsing on his stomach. The area echoed with screams, and the weapon shots seemed louder than expected. Sirens wailed as responding officers approached. Unsure of the situation's severity, they placed Kelsey on her stomach and handcuffed her by the open door, her cries continuing. Shocked by the unfolding events, I finally noticed the weapon aimed at me and the officer commanding, "Stop! Drop the weapon!" Coming to my senses, I complied and followed his orders. The following 2 weeks were a whirlwind of chaos and stress. Jason was declared dead at the scene. Later, I found out through police reports and eyewitnesses that he received both my lawsuit and updated divorce papers from his wife simultaneously. It didn't take him long to figure out that the incriminating photos came from me. Kelsey stood beside him as he opened the envelope from his wife and confirmed that she, too, had a set of those photographs. Shortly after, they were summoned to the vice president's office, where they confessed to their affair, unaware of the consequences. Realizing that my lawsuit against the company would likely fail, the management decided to terminate the managing director for engaging in an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate, which they promptly did. In Jason's eyes, I became the embodiment of evil, and he believed I deserved punishment for thwarting his plans. Grabbing one of his souvenir bats from the office, he set off for my house. Kelsey spotted him through the conference room window on the second floor and guessed his destination. She intercepted him in our driveway, attempting to calm him down before any injury was done to me. Unbeknownst to them, I had been forewarned of their arrival and was prepared. Kelsey ended up with a black eye when Jason struck her while she tried to prevent him from entering. Other than that, she sustained no further injuries, but endured months of nightmares. Amidst police interrogations, legal proceedings, and courtroom appearances, I spoke with her briefly, but we never delved into a deep discussion about the events that transpired in our home. Kelsey was a mere shadow of her former self, having lost her husband, lover, and daughter in less than 24 hours. She never fully recovered. Kelsey remained in touch throughout the divorce proceedings and perhaps for about a month after its conclusion. Surprisingly, she never enlisted a lawyer or contested the divorce, allowing me to easily secure custody of Caitlin. However, to my surprise, she never fulfilled her part of the financial settlement. Bill held onto it for her, but eventually returned it to me a year later. She never returned to our home and instead stayed with family until she vanished. Despite a few supervised visits with Caitlin, they were often awkward or unproductive. Regardless, I ensured Caitlin was available for every scheduled visit, whether Kelsey confirmed attendance or not. She showed up roughly every fourth visit. I learned that Kelsey had developed a dependency on painkillers and other prescribed medications to manage her mental well-being. By the time she disappeared, she was unemployed, isolated, and destitute. Neither Caitlin nor I, nor anyone she knew, had any means of contacting her, and she ceased all communication with us. We were left without a wife and mother. Eventually, we sold the house and purchased another in Caitlin's school district, striving to rebuild our lives. Both Caitlin and I sought counseling to cope with the trauma. While I attended for 6 months, I eventually had to suppress the pain and move forward. I had a daughter to care for and a life to lead. Caitlin underwent counseling for several years, intermittently, largely due to her response to the divorce and Kelsey's disappearance. She grappled with numerous psychological challenges. It took me 3 years to gather my bearings enough to consider dating again. A few months later, I encountered a remarkable woman named Jo, who was compassionate and understanding regarding Caitlin's and my circumstances. Our courtship progressed much slower and longer than either of us desired, but eventually evolved into a physical relationship, leading to marriage roughly 16 months later. Jo and I nurtured Caitlin as our own daughter, but opted not to expand our family further. Over time, our lives stabilized and flourished. Our only hurdles centered around significant milestones in Caitlin's life, such as her high school and college graduations. I enlisted Larry's help multiple times in attempts to locate Kelsey, yet every lead proved fruitless. The prevailing belief was that she likely met an unfortunate demise in solitude and despair. It was a harrowing ordeal, but we persevered as best we could and moved forward. I was grateful for the opportunity to devise a strategy and enlist the right assistance to implement it effectively.
Story 4.
The morning sun cast long shadows across the Red Haven fire station as Nolan Parker completed his final equipment check. His calloused hands moved with practiced efficiency over the breathing apparatus, testing each valve and connection. Even after 8 years on the job, he never rushed this part. Lives depended on this gear working perfectly that he meticulously checked each component. Regulator, pressure gauge, facepiece, harness straps. The routine was so ingrained, he could probably do it blindfolded. But that would go against everything his father had taught him about responsibility. "Hey, Lieutenant," Mike Rodriguez called from across the bay. "You planning to marry that SCBA? Or are you going to let someone else check it sometime?" Nolan allowed himself a small smile without looking up. "When you learn to check it properly, Rodriguez, maybe I'll consider it." Ouch. Mike clutched his chest dramatically. "That hurts, LT. I'll have you know I was top of my class in equipment maintenance. Is that why you missed the Warren strap last week? That was one time. One time is all it takes." Nolan finally looked up, his expression serious. In our line of work, one mistake can cost a life. The entire crew chorused from various points around the station, drawing laughs. Jake Thompson, a burly veteran firefighter, clapped Mike on the shoulder. You'll learn, kid. Parker here learned it from his old man, and now we all learn it from him. Speaking of learning, Mike said, his tone shifting. Chief wants to see you before roll call. LT. Nolan nodded, securing the equipment back in place. At 34, he carried himself with a disciplined bearing that marked him as a former Marine. His short-cropped dark hair and steady gaze hadn't changed much since his service days, though fine lines had started appearing at the corners of his eyes, earned from squinting through smoke and flames. Parker's in trouble, sang out Danny Martinez from the kitchen. Probably getting written up for being too perfect. Nah, Jake countered, but it's another commendation. Did you hear about what he did at that warehouse fire last week? Nolan ignored the good-natured ribbing as he made his way to the chief's office. In truth, his stomach had tightened at the summons. After 15 years in the fire service, Chief Harrison never called anyone in for good news before roll call. The chief's office was a testament to 30 years of service. Plaques and certificates covered one wall, while another held a massive map of Red Haven marked with colored pins denoting different types of emergency responses. The morning light filtering through Venetian blinds created stripes across the cluttered desk where Chief Harrison sat reviewing papers. Close the door, Parker. Nolan complied, standing at parade rest out of habit. The chief looked up, his weathered face grave. At ease before you sprain something. Harrison gestured to a chair. Got a request from CAL FIRE. They're asking for experienced personnel for the wildfires. 3-month deployment minimum. He slid a document across the desk. Nolan picked it up, scanning the details. The California wildfire season had started early this year, and it was already shaping up to be one of the worst on record. They specifically requested you by name, Harrison continued. Your experience from the Montana fires last year caught their attention. Plus, your military background makes you ideal for extended deployments. A familiar weight settled in Nolan's chest. He thought of June at home, probably still asleep in their bed. She'd been talking more about starting a family lately, hinting that maybe it was time to scale back on his deployments. When do they need an answer? End of shift today. Harrison leaned back in his chair. Look, Parker, I know it's a lot to ask. You've got June to consider. No one would think less of you for sitting this one out. The words, though meant kindly, made Nolan's jaw tighten. Sir, with respect, that's not how I operate. No, Harrison sighed. It's not. Duke raised you too well for that. How is the old warhorse, anyway? The mention of his father sent Nolan's mind back to countless childhood conversations around the dinner table, Duke Parker's voice firm as he instilled the values that would shape his son's life. A man's word is his bond, son. Honor and loyalty, without those, you've got nothing. Dad's the same as always, Nolan replied. Still teaching at the VA, helping other vets adjust to civilian life. Vietnam didn't break him, and retirement won't either. Harrison smiled, then grew serious again. But this deployment, Parker, California's different. These fires, they're not like anything we've seen before. Climate change. Drought is creating conditions that make containment nearly impossible. All the more reason they need experienced hands. Harrison studied him for a long moment. You've already decided, haven't you? I'll talk to June, Nolan said, standing. But you know my record, sir. I've never turned down a call for help. And that's exactly why they requested you. Harrison stood as well. Your father would be proud, Parker. Hell, he's proud. Brags about you every chance he gets at the VFW. The praise made Nolan uncomfortable, as it always did. Permission to head a roll call, sir? Granted. And Parker. Harrison's voice stopped him at the door. When you tell June, remember that not everyone understands duty the way we do. Sometimes we need to explain it in terms they can relate to. Nolan nodded, but inwardly he wondered if any explanation would be enough this time. June's patience with his sense of duty had been wearing thin lately back in the bay. His crew was assembling for roll call. They fell silent as he approached, reading something in his expression. Cal Fire. Jake asked quietly. Nolan nodded once. Damn. Mike whistled low. How long? 3 months minimum. June's gonna love that, Danny muttered, then flushed when everyone looked at him. Sorry, LT. Not my business. No, Nolan agreed, his tone making it clear the subject was closed. It's not. The rest of the shift passed in a blur of routine calls, a kitchen fire, a car accident, an elderly man with chest pains. Through it all, Nolan felt the weight of the Cal Fire request in his pocket, and the conversation he knew was waiting at home later that evening. Nolan pulled his truck into the driveway of their modest 2-story home. The porch light was on, and through the window, he could see June moving around in the kitchen. His stomach tightened as he thought about the conversation ahead inside. The smell of garlic and herbs filled the air. June looked up from the stove, her honey blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing one of his old Marine Corps t-shirts as a cooking outfit. At 30, she still had the same warm presence that had first drawn him to her 8 years ago, though lately, he'd noticed a restlessness in her eyes. You're late, she said, but her smile took any sting from the words. Had to finish some paperwork. Nolan moved to kiss her cheek, noting how she seemed to hesitate for just a fraction of a second before leaning into it. Smells good. Just trying out a new recipe. She stirred the pot of pasta, not meeting his eyes. That editor finally got back to me about my manuscript. Nolan grabbed a beer from the fridge, tensing. And, same as always. Shows promise, but not quite what we're looking for at this time. June's stirring became more aggressive. You know what that means? It means it's garbage. 5 years of writing, and I'm still nowhere. It's not garbage, Nolan said automatically, though he'd never read more than a few chapters. June had stopped sharing her work with him months ago. These things take time. Time? June laughed bitterly. Yeah, that's something I've got plenty of, isn't it? Sitting here alone while you're off being a hero. The conversation was veering into dangerous territory, but Nolan knew he couldn't put off his news any longer. Had a meeting with Chief Harrison this morning. June's stirring slowed. About? Cal Fire needs experienced personnel for the wildfire season. They've requested me specifically. The wooden spoon clattered against the pot as June set it down. How long? 3 months minimum. Nolan took a pull from his beer, watching her back stiffen. 3 months? June's voice was flat. She turned to face him, and he could see the struggle playing across her features. We talked about this, Nolan. We agreed you'd cut back on deployments. This is different. They always need something. June's voice rose. What about what I need? What about the plans we made? Or do those not matter because they're not heroic enough for the great Nolan Parker? Nolan set his beer down carefully on the counter, measuring his words. That's not fair, June. You knew who I was when you married me. A firefighter doesn't turn his back when people need help. No, a Parker doesn't turn his back, June shot back. Always following in Daddy's footsteps, aren't you? The great Duke Parker's son, keeper of the family honor. God forbid you disappoint him. Leave my father out of this. Why should I? He's always in this marriage, isn't he? His voice in your head is standards you have to live up to. The perfect soldier, the perfect firefighter, the perfect son. June's voice cracked. But what about being a perfect husband? I put everything first, Nolan said, his voice taking on an edge. My job lets us have this house. Lets you pursue your writing. My writing? June's eyes flashed. You mean my hobby? Because that's all it is without an actual book deal, right? Just something to keep the little woman busy while her hero husband saves the world. I never said that. You never had to. June turned back to the stove, her shoulders tight. Just go, Nolan. We both know you're going to anyway. You always do. The silence stretched between them, filled with things unsaid. Finally, Nolan spoke quietly. I'll be in my study. Need to make some calls? Of course you do, June muttered. Don't worry about dinner. I'm not hungry anymore. Later that night, lying in bed with June's back turned to him, Nolan stared at the ceiling. The distance between them felt wider than usual, and not for the first time. He wondered if there was truth in her accusations. But then he thought of the fires raging in California, of homes and lives at risk, and knew he couldn't refuse the call. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation and tense silence. June went through the motions of helping him pack, but her movements were mechanical, her words clipped. On the morning of his departure, she didn't even come to the airport. "I have a substitute teaching assignment," she said, avoiding his eyes. "I can't miss it." Nolan stood in their bedroom doorway, duffel bag in hand, watching her get ready for the day. "I'll call when I can." June nodded, focusing intently on applying her mascara. "Be safe." He waited a moment longer, but she didn't turn around. With a heavy sigh, Nolan headed downstairs. As he loaded his bag into the waiting taxi, he looked up at their bedroom window. June stood there, watching, but when their eyes met, she quickly turned away. The house felt empty after Nolan left. June wandered from room to room, picking things up and putting them down again. Her laptop sat open on the kitchen table, the cursor blinking on a blank page. Another failed attempt at starting a new story. Her phone buzzed with a text from her friend Lisa. "Girl, you need to get out of that house. Come to my spin class at Red Haven Fitness. Hot new instructor, total eye candy." June almost declined, but the thought of spending another day alone with her rejection letters made her fingers type. "What time?" The gym was busy when June arrived, clutching her water bottle like a shield. Lisa waved her over to a bike in the second row. "You made it." Lisa grinned. "Trust me, this class will change your life. And wait till you see Wyatt. He's amazing." Before June could respond, the lights dimmed, and music started pumping through the speakers. A tall, athletic man strode to the front of the class, his confident smile visible even in the low light. "Welcome, everyone. I'm Wyatt Cross, and I'm here to push you past your limits today." His eyes swept the room, lingering for a moment on June. She felt her cheeks flush and quickly looked down at her bike settings. The class was brutal. By the end, June's legs felt like jelly, and her tank top was soaked with sweat. As people filed out, Wyatt approached her bike. "First time?" he asked, his voice carrying a hint of amusement. "I'm impressed most newcomers give up halfway through." June wiped her face with a towel, suddenly self-conscious. "That obvious, huh?" "You have good form," Wyatt said, leaning against a nearby bike. "Just need to work on your pacing. I could give you some tips if you're interested." Something in his tone made June's pulse quicken. Maybe. I should probably check with my husband first." "Husband?" Wyatt's eyebrows rose slightly. "Military? Former Marine. He's a firefighter now." June found herself adding, "Away on deployment in California." "Ah." Wyatt nodded understanding. "Must be tough, being alone so much." The simple acknowledgement, so different from Nolan's stoic acceptance of their separations, made June's throat tight. "You get used to it, do you?" Wyatt's green eyes held hers. "Or do you just tell yourself that?" Before June could respond, Lisa bounced over. "Earth to June. Coming to get smoothies with us?" "Rain check," June said quickly. "I should get home." But the next day she was back. And the day after that, spinning became boxing, became personal training sessions. Wyatt was always there, his attention making her feel seen in a way she hadn't in years. "You're tense today," he said during one session, his hands correcting her form on a kettlebell swing. "Everything okay?" June set the weight down, wiping her brow. "Just frustrated. Got another rejection letter." "You're a writer?" "Trying to be." June laughed bitterly. "Not very successfully. Let me guess. Your husband tells you to keep trying, that these things take time?" June stared at him. "How did you know?" Wyatt shrugged, moving closer. "It's what people say when they don't really understand." "When was the last time he actually read your work?" I don't know." June looked away. "He's busy. Too busy for something that matters to you." Wyatt's hand touched her arm lightly. "You deserve better than that, June." The California wildfires were worse than anyone had anticipated. Days blurred into weeks as Nolan and his team battled the relentless advance of flames across the drought-stricken landscape. Communication with home was sporadic at best. Satellite phones were reserved for emergencies, and cell service was nearly non-existent in the remote areas where they worked. When he did manage to call June, their conversations were short and stilted. She talked about her substitute teaching assignments, mentioned working on her novel, but something in her voice seemed off. "Started going to the gym," she told him during one call. "Trying to make some positive changes while you're away." "That's good," Nolan said, distracted by the sound of helicopters overhead. Listen, I have to go. Fire's jumping the line again. Of course it is, June muttered. Stay safe. Back in Red Haven, June's world had shifted dramatically. What started as innocent conversations with Wyatt during workouts had evolved into something more. At first, she told herself she was just enjoying having someone listen to her, understand her frustrations. Wyatt was everything Nolan wasn't: spontaneous, attentive, always there. He didn't carry the weight of family legacy on his shoulders or disappear for months at a time. When June talked about her writing, he encouraged her to dream bigger. You're talented, he'd say, his hand lingering on her arm during their training sessions. You just need someone who believes in you. The first time he kissed her, after a late-night training session when the gym was nearly empty, June knew she should stop it. Instead, she kissed him back, all her loneliness and frustration pouring out in that moment of weakness. What followed was a whirlwind of secret meetings and stolen moments. Wyatt made her feel alive, desired, important. When guilt crept in, he was quick to remind her of all the times Nolan had chosen his job over her. You deserve to be happy, he'd whisper, his hands tracing patterns on her skin. When was the last time he made you feel this way? June tried to ignore the rumors about Wyatt's past, the whispered stories about other women. He was different with her, she told herself. Special. When he suggested they meet at his apartment instead of the gym, she agreed without hesitation. One evening, as they lay tangled in his sheets, June's phone buzzed. Nolan's name lit up the screen. Don't answer it, Wyatt murmured against her neck. June hesitated for a moment, then silenced the phone. After 3 months of grueling work, Nolan received word that his team would be rotating out. The night before his departure, he managed to get through to June on a video call. I'm coming home, he said, studying her pixelated image on the screen. Should be there day after tomorrow. For a moment, something like panic flashed across June's face. That's great, she said, her voice slightly higher than normal. I thought you said it might be longer? Fires are finally under control. Nolan frowned at her reaction. Everything okay? Of course. June's response came too quickly. Just surprised. The house is a mess. I'll need to clean up. June, Nolan's voice was quiet but firm. What's going on? Nothing's going on. She wouldn't meet his eyes through the screen. I have to go gym class. We'll talk when you get home. The call ended abruptly, leaving Nolan staring at a blank screen. In his gut, a cold certainty was beginning to form. Something was very wrong in Red Haven. Everything all right, Parker? Mark Stevens, another firefighter, asked from nearby. Fine. Nolan's voice was clipped as he pocketed his phone. Didn't sound fine. Mark sat down beside him. Look, I know it's none of my business, but I've been married 15 years. Sometimes when you're away this long, don't. Nolan stood abruptly. I need to pack. The flight home seemed endless. Every time Nolan closed his eyes, he saw June's face during that last call, the guilt, the fear, the evasion. He thought about her recent behavior, the changes in her routine, the constant mentions of the gym. Each piece was starting to form a picture he didn't want to see. His father's words echoed in his mind. Trust your gut, son. A Parker's instincts are rarely wrong. When his plane finally landed in Red Haven, Nolan didn't call June to pick him up. Instead, he took a taxi, arriving home in the early afternoon. The house was quiet, empty. June's car was gone at the gym, probably. The thought made his jaw clench. Moving through the house, Nolan noted small changes. New clothes in the closet, designer brands they couldn't afford on her substitute teacher salary. A different perfume on the dresser, more expensive than what she usually wore. June's laptop sat on the kitchen counter, closed but powered on. As if on cue, a notification pinged. Nolan stood looking at the laptop for a long moment. In 8 years of marriage, he'd never once checked June's private communications. Trust and honor, those were the foundations of any relationship. His father had taught him. Another ping from the laptop. Slowly, deliberately, Nolan opened the screen. The email notification preview made his blood run cold. From Wyatt, cross-subject. Missing you already. With trembling hands, Nolan clicked the email. What he read destroyed his world in seconds. Last night was amazing. Can't stop thinking about how you feel, how you taste. Can't wait to see you again tonight. Remember what I said? You deserve to be happy. He'll never understand you the way I do. The email went on. Explicit details of their encounters laid bare. References to previous meetings, future plans. The evidence of June's betrayal in digital black and white. As Nolan scrolled through message after message, the trembling in his hands turned to stone-cold steadiness. The kind of steadiness he'd learned in the Marines. The kind that came with absolute clarity of purpose. The front door opened, and June's voice called out, "Nolan? Your truck's not here. Are you home?" Nolan didn't move from the kitchen counter, his eyes still fixed on the laptop screen. He heard June's footsteps approach, then stop abruptly in the doorway. "Oh, God," she whispered slowly. Nolan turned to face his wife. June stood frozen. Her gym bag dropped at her feet, face drained of color. She was wearing new workout clothes, expensive ones. Her hair and makeup perfectly done despite supposedly coming from exercise. "How long?" His voice was terrifyingly calm. June's mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. Tears began to well in her eyes. "How long?" "Nolan, please, I can explain. Can you explain this?" He turned the laptop toward her, displaying one of Wyatt's explicit emails. "Can you explain why you're fucking a gym instructor while I'm risking my life fighting fires?" "It just happened," June sobbed. "I was so lonely, and Wyatt was there." "Wyatt?" Nolan's laugh was harsh. "The guy with a reputation for sleeping with half the married women in Red Haven. That's who you chose to betray me with. You were never here." June's voice rose hysterically. "Always gone, always putting everyone else first. What about me? What about us? There is no us anymore." Nolan's voice could have frozen hell. "You made sure of that." June took a step forward, reaching for him. "Baby, please. Don't." Nolan stepped back as if her touch would burn him. "Don't you dare call me that. I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air like smoke. Nolan felt his world tilt sideways, then right itself with brutal clarity. "Is it mine?" June's silence was answer enough. "You don't know, do you?" Nolan's voice was deadly quiet. "You don't even know whose child you're carrying." "I'm so sorry," June whispered. "We can work through this. We can get counseling. There is no we anymore." Nolan straightened to his full height, his military bearing returning. "You destroyed that the moment you decided to spread your legs for another man." "Nolan, please." June was fully crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "I love you." "No." Nolan walked past her, not even looking in her direction. "You love yourself. That's all you've ever loved." He paused at the bottom of the stairs, his back still to her. "I want you gone when I get back. Stay with your gym rat or your parents. I don't care. But this marriage is over. Where are you going?" June's voice was small, broken. "To get a lawyer." Nolan opened the front door. "And June? Don't bother trying to fix this. Some betrayals can't be forgiven." The door closed behind him with a final click, leaving June alone in the kitchen, surrounded by the wreckage of her choices. Outside, Nolan got into his truck, his hands steady on the wheel. Duke Parker's voice echoed in his mind. "A man without honor is nothing, son. And once lost, it can never be reclaimed." As he pulled away from the house, Nolan felt a cold certainty settle over him. June had made her choice. Now she would face the consequences. Rebecca Graves' law office projected exactly the image she wanted. Success without ostentation. Nolan sat in a leather chair across from her desk, his posture military straight despite his exhaustion. He hadn't slept since discovering June's betrayal 24 hours ago. "Tell me everything," Rebecca said, her silver-streaked hair pulled back in a severe bun. "Leave nothing out?" Nolan placed a USB drive on her desk. "I made copies of all the emails between them. Text messages, too." "Smart." Rebecca plugged the drive into her computer. Most clients let emotion take over, destroy evidence in anger. "You're more methodical." "Military training," Nolan said flatly. "Always secure intelligence before engaging the enemy." Rebecca's fingers moved across her keyboard as she scanned the messages. Her eyebrows rose slightly. "Well, Mr. Cross certainly has a way with words. Very explicit. Read the one from last Tuesday." She clicked, then let out a low whistle. "Your wife's pregnancy complicates things. We'll need a paternity test. Already scheduled. You work fast." Rebecca studied him over her reading glasses. Most men in your situation are still in shock at this point. I had a 3-hour flight to process it. Nolan's voice was cold. Now I want action. Tell me what you want. I want her gone. I want a divorce that protects my assets and reputation. And I want Wyatt Cross exposed for what he is. Rebecca leaned back, steepling her fingers. The divorce is straightforward. Infidelity documented this extensively makes it simple. But exposing Cross, that's trickier. What did you have in mind? He's married too. Wife named Cassidy owns the Rainbow Bakery downtown. Ah, Rebecca's lips curved slightly. And does Mrs. Cross know about her husband's extracurricular activities? Not yet. Nolan met her eyes. But anonymous tips have a way of spreading. Careful, Rebecca warned. Anything we do has to be legal. Everything will be legal. Just thorough. Rebecca nodded slowly. I can work with thorough. Now, about June, a knock interrupted them. Rebecca's assistant poked her head in. Sorry to interrupt, but Mr. Parker's wife is in the lobby demanding to see him. Nolan's jaw tightened. Rebecca held up a hand before he could speak. Send her in, she said. Let's get this confrontation out of the way now with witnesses. June burst through the door moments later, her face tear-stained. Nolan, please, we need to talk. Anything you have to say can be said in front of my lawyer. Nolan didn't turn to look at her. Your lawyer. June's voice cracked. Already? We haven't even discussed. There's nothing to discuss. Now Nolan did turn, his eyes hard. You made your choices. Now you deal with the consequences. It wasn't just my choice. June's voice rose. You pushed me to this? Always gone. Always putting your duty first. Did my duty force you to sleep with him? Nolan's voice could have cut steel. Did my job make you spread your legs for a worthless gym rat? Mr. Parker, Rebecca interjected smoothly. Perhaps we should... No. June stepped forward, fists clenched. You don't get to judge me. You weren't there. You were never there. I was providing for us, Nolan shot back. Working to give you the life you wanted. The house, the freedom to write. Freedom? June laughed hysterically. What freedom? I was a prisoner in that house, waiting for my hero husband to come home. Do you know what Wyatt gave me? He listened. He cared. He used you. Nolan's voice was flat, like he's used every other married woman in Red Haven. Congratulations. You're just another notch on his bedpost. June recoiled, as if slapped. That's not true. He loves me. Really? Nolan nodded to Rebecca, who turned her computer screen around. On it was a dating profile, Wyatt's active as of yesterday. Funny way of showing it. June stared at the screen, her face draining of color. This can't be. Oh, it gets better. Rebecca clicked to another screen, a forum for local fitness enthusiasts. Here's what your lover posted 2 weeks ago. Another bored housewife in the bag. These Marine wives are too easy. June swayed on her feet. He wouldn't. He said I was special. He says that to all of them. Nolan stood, towering over her. Now get out. Any further communication goes through our lawyers. Nolan, please. June reached for him. The baby might not even be mine. Nolan stepped back. We'll let the paternity test decide that. If it's mine, I'll provide support and seek joint custody. If it's his smile was cruel. Well, good luck with that. You can't do this, June whispered. 8 years of marriage ended the moment you chose him. Nolan turned to Rebecca. We're done here. Mrs. Parker, Rebecca said firmly, I suggest you leave now and contact your own attorney. Any further attempts to contact my client directly will be noted and could affect the divorce proceedings. June stood frozen for a moment, tears streaming down her face. Then she turned and fled, her sobs echoing down the hallway. Rebecca waited until the outer door closed. Well, that was dramatic. She always did love drama. Nolan sat back down, his posture rigid. What's our next move? First, we file the divorce papers. Fast and clean. Rebecca began typing. Then we gather more evidence about Cross. His dating profiles, social media, gym records, anything that shows a pattern. And Cassidy Cross? Leave that to me. Rebecca smiled thinly. I have ways of ensuring information reaches the right people. Nolan nodded. His phone buzzed another text from June. He deleted it without reading. One more thing, Rebecca said. The pregnancy. Are you prepared for either outcome? Doesn't matter. Nolan's voice was ice. The marriage is over either way. If it's mine, I'll do my duty as a father. If it's his, he shrugged. Their problem. Good. Clean emotions make for clean divorces. Rebecca closed her laptop. Go home, Mr. Parker. Rest. Let me handle the next steps. But Nolan didn't go home. Instead, he drove to the one place he knew he could think clearly, the fire station. The bay was quiet this time of day. Most crews out on calls. Jake Thompson was cleaning equipment when Nolan walked in. One look at his lieutenant's face told him everything. Shit, Jake said quietly. That bad? That bad? Jake repeated when Nolan didn't respond. Want to talk about it? Nolan moved to the equipment bench, picking up a wrench with mechanical precision. June's been sleeping with Wyatt Cross. The gym instructor? Jake's face darkened. That piece of she's pregnant. Nolan's grip tightened on the wrench. Might be his. Jesus Christ. Jake ran a hand through his graying hair. What are you going to do? Already doing it. Lawyers handling the divorce. Nolan began methodically checking the air tanks. But Cross, he needs to face consequences. His wife should know, Jake said. Cassidy's good people. She doesn't deserve this either. Already planned. Nolan's phone buzzed again. Another text from June. He showed Jake the screen before deleting it. Please come home. We need to talk. I made a mistake. I choose you. Desperate, Jake observed. Pathetic, Nolan corrected. She didn't choose me when she was spreading her legs for Cross. The station's computer terminal caught his eye. Jake, you still have access to the department's secure email? Yeah, why? Need to send something anonymously. 20 minutes later, an email arrived in Cassidy Cross's business account. Mrs. Cross, your husband's activities at Red Haven Fitness extend beyond professional training. Attached are messages between him and one of his many married clients. There are others. A concerned citizen Nolan had carefully selected the least explicit but most damning exchanges between June and Wyatt. Enough to prove the affair without revealing June's identity. That would come later. You sure about this? Jake asked as they hit send. She deserves to know. Nolan's voice was firm. What she does with the information is up to her. They didn't have to wait long for results. The next morning, Nolan was at the station when his phone lit up with texts from multiple numbers. Word was spreading through Red Haven like wildfire. Cassidy Cross had shown up at Red Haven Fitness during Wyatt's morning class. Mike Rodriguez burst into the bay, grinning. Lieutenant, you're going to want to hear this. My wife was at the gym for morning yoga. Nolan looked up from his equipment check. Report. Cassidy walked in during Wyatt's spin class. You know, the one with all the housewives? Mike's eyes gleamed. Marched right up to the instructor platform, laptop in hand. Started reading his messages out loud to the whole class. How'd Cross handle that? Jake asked. Tried to play it cool at first, told her she was making a scene. Then she started naming names. Mike shook his head admiringly. Man, you should have seen those women's faces. At least 3 of them were his clients. What happened next? Nolan's voice was neutral, but his satisfaction showed in his eyes. Cassidy threw his gym bag at him. Must have stopped at home first. Told him she'd already emptied his closet onto the front lawn. Mike laughed. Then she announced to the whole class that anyone who wanted their husband's texts with Wyatt could email her for copies. Jake whistled low. Damn, women doesn't mess around. That's not all, Mike continued. She walked straight to the gym owner's office. 10 minutes later, Wyatt's being escorted out. Apparently, sleeping with clients violates his contract. Nolan allowed himself a small smile. Phase 1 of Cross's destruction was complete. The fallout was immediate and devastating. By afternoon, Red Haven Fitness had issued a public statement distancing themselves from Wyatt. 3 women had already filed formal complaints about his unprofessional behavior. His carefully cultivated reputation was in tatters. Nolan was reviewing dispatch logs when his office phone rang. The caller ID showed Rainbow Bakery. Mr. Parker? Cassidy Cross's voice was cool and controlled. Do you have a moment? Mrs. Cross. Nolan kept his tone professional. What can I do for you? Cut the act. There was steel in her voice. I know the email came from the fire station server. And I know why you sent it. Nolan said nothing. June was one of his regulars. Cassidy continued. I saw their messages. I'm sorry. Don't be. You didn't betray anyone. No, but my soon-to-be ex-husband did. She paused. I'm glad you told me. I needed to know. What are you going to do? Already doing it. Divorce papers filed this morning. His things are on the lawn, and I'm about to email every gym in a 50-mile radius about his behavior. Thorough. I own a business, Mr. Parker. I know how to handle problems. Another pause. Would you like coffee sometime? Compare notes on divorce lawyers. Nolan considered for a moment. Rainbow Bakery makes good coffee. Tomorrow at 10? There was a smile in her voice now. I'll save you a cinnamon roll. I'll be there. After hanging up, Nolan checked his phone. 3 missed calls from June, 2 from numbers he didn't recognize. He blocked them all. Jake appeared in the doorway. Got something you should see. He held up his phone, showing a social media post. Wyatt Cross, clearly drunk at the local bar, ranting about ungrateful wives and jealous husbands. Want to guess where he's headed next? Jake asked. Nolan stood, grabbing his jacket. Let's find out. They found Wyatt at O'Malley's bar, holding court at the counter. His usual smooth appearance was disheveled, his designer shirt wrinkled. It's all lies, he was telling anyone who would listen. I help people, make them feel good about themselves. Is that a crime? Sleeping with married women is. A voice called from the crowd. Wyatt spun unsteadily. Who said that? Come on, show yourself. Right here. Nolan stepped forward. Jake at his shoulder, the color drained from Wyatt's face. Parker. Cross. Nolan's voice carried across the now silent bar. Having a rough day? You. Wyatt pointed an unsteady finger. You did this. You and that bitch wife of mine. Ex-wife. Nolan corrected. And you did this to yourself? Wyatt lurched to his feet. You think you're better than me? At least I give women what they need. What they're not getting at home. That's what you tell yourself. Nolan's smile was cold. That you're helping them? Asked June. Wyatt's grin was ugly. She came to me. Begged for it. Couldn't get enough. The punch came so fast, even Jake didn't see it coming. Wyatt sprawled across the bar, blood spurting from his nose. You broke my nose, he screamed. Lunging at Nolan, what followed wasn't really a fight. Wyatt, drunk and undisciplined, threw wild punches that Nolan easily avoided. The ex-Marine's return strikes were precise, devastating. Enough! Jake pulled Nolan back as Wyatt slumped against the bar. He's done. Police are coming, the bartender announced. Mr. Cross started it. Several voices called out. We all saw it. He threw the first punch. Nolan straightened his jacket, completely composed. I'll be at the station if they need a statement. As they left, they heard the sound of breaking glass followed by cursing. Wyatt, trying to stand, had knocked over several bottles. Feel better? Jake asked as they walked to the truck. Getting there, Nolan's knuckles were barely scraped. Still work to do. His phone buzzed a text from Rebecca Graves. Cassidy Cross's lawyer called. She's willing to share evidence for both our cases. And June's latest lawyer quit. Apparently, she can't pay his retainer. Meeting tomorrow? Nolan smiled. The pieces were falling into place. Rainbow Bakery lived up to its name, with displays full of colorful pastries and a warm, inviting atmosphere. Cassidy Cross moved with efficient grace behind the counter, her professional smile never wavering as she served customers. Only someone watching closely would notice how her jaw tightened when the bell chimed and Wyatt stumbled in. Cass, baby, we need to talk. His words slurred slightly, his designer clothes rumpled from sleeping in his car. We're closed, Cassidy announced to the remaining customers. Please finish your purchases. People quickly gathered their things, throwing suspicious looks at Wyatt as they left. Nolan, seated in a corner booth with case files spread before him, didn't move. He stays, Cassidy said when Wyatt pointed at Nolan. He's here on business. Business? Wyatt laughed bitterly. That what you call it? Moving on already? Like you moved on with June Parker? Cassidy's voice could have frozen fire. And Lisa Mitchell? And Rachel Torres? Should I continue the list? Those meant nothing. Wyatt stepped forward, gripping the counter. You're my wife. Ex-wife, Cassidy corrected, mimicking Nolan's words from the bar. The papers are filed. It's over. Because of him. Wyatt spun toward Nolan. You turned her against me. You did that yourself. Nolan didn't look up from his files. One married woman at a time. You self-righteous bastard. Wyatt swayed slightly. Think you're so perfect? At least I make women happy. When's the last time June smiled for you? Now Nolan did look up, his eyes cold. Careful, Cross. Your nose just healed. That's assault. Wyatt pointed dramatically. You assaulted me. I could press charges. You mean like the charges 3 of your clients are pressing? Cassidy asked sweetly. Sexual harassment, wasn't it? The gym's lawyer called this morning. Wyatt's face paled. They can't prove anything. No. Cassidy held up her phone. I have all your messages, remember? Already forwarded to their lawyers. Very explicit stuff, Wyatt. Very damaging. You bitch. Wyatt lunged forward, but Nolan was already moving in seconds. Wyatt found himself face down on a table, arm twisted behind his back. Nolan's voice was conversational. That's 2 strikes, Cross. Want to try for 3? Get off me. Wyatt struggled uselessly. I'll sue you. For what? Nolan applied slightly more pressure. I'm just protecting a lady from an aggressive drunk. Every customer who left will testify to that. Plus, there's security cameras. Cassidy walked around the counter, heels clicking on the tile floor. Leave, Wyatt, before I call the police. Again, Nolan released him. Wyatt straightened up, trying to salvage his dignity. This isn't over, he muttered. It was over the moment you couldn't keep it in your pants, Cassidy replied. Now, get out of my shop. After Wyatt slunk out, Cassidy sighed heavily. Sorry about that. He's been showing up everywhere since the gym fired him. He's unraveling. Nolan returned to his seat. Makes our cases stronger. Speaking of cases, Cassidy brought over fresh coffee. Rebecca called. June missed her court appearance this morning. Not surprised. She's been spiraling since the paternity test appointment was scheduled. Have you talked to her? No point. Nolan took a sip of coffee. She made her choice. The bell chimed again. Rebecca Graves strode in, briefcase in hand. Good, you're both here. We have developments. She spread papers across the table. 3 more women have come forward about Wyatt. All married clients. All during the same period he was seeing June. Their husbands are filing a civil suit against the gym. Perfect timing, Cassidy said. The gym's trying to settle with me quietly. They don't want a scandal. Let them sweat, Rebecca advised. Your settlement will triple once these new cases hit the news. What about June? Nolan asked. Mr. Court date. As you know, her lawyer filed to withdraw from the case. Apparently, she's burned through her savings. Rebecca's smile was sharp. The judge is not impressed with her behavior. She called me last night, Cassidy mentioned, crying about how Wyatt won't answer her calls. He's got bigger problems. Rebecca pulled out another document. Remember that bar fight? He got drunk again last night, tried to break into the gym to get his client files. Police caught him with cocaine. Nolan raised an eyebrow. That's convenient, isn't it? Rebecca looked pleased. Possession charges, breaking and entering, plus the harassment suits. His personal training career is over. Good. Nolan's voice was cold. What's next? Paternity test in 3 days. June can't avoid that one. It's court-ordered. After that, we push for a quick divorce settlement. Rebecca gathered her papers. Unless you've changed your mind about reconciliation, not a chance. Nolan's tone brooked no argument. She made her choice. Now she lives with it. Speaking of living with choices, Cassidy cut in. Guess who's sleeping in his car outside the gym? He won't be for long, Rebecca said. The restraining orders should be approved tomorrow. All 3 of them. Nolan's phone buzzed. Jake Thompson calling. Parker, you're going to want to get down here. LT. Jake's voice was urgent. Cross just showed up at the station, ranting about how you ruined his life. He's completely lost it. On my way. Nolan stood, gathering his files. Duty calls? Be careful, Cassidy said. He's desperate. Good. Nolan's smile was grim. Desperate people make mistakes. The scene at the fire station was chaos. Wyatt, wild-eyed and disheveled, was pacing in the bay, shouting at anyone who would listen. You think you're heroes? He yelled. You're nothing. Taking away my job. My wife. My reputation. You did that yourself, Nolan said calmly, walking in. One client at a time. Wyatt spun to face him. You. This is all your fault. He charged forward, swinging wildly. Nolan stepped aside, letting Wyatt's momentum carry him into a tool cabinet. The crash echoed through the bay. That's enough. Chief Harrison's voice cracked like a whip. Police are on their way, Mr. Cross. I suggest you leave before they arrive. You can't prove anything. Wyatt struggled to his feet. It's all lies. Really? Nolan pulled out his phone, playing a recording. Wyatt's voice, slurred but clear, from the bar, asked June. She came to me, begged for it. I recorded everything, Nolan said quietly. Every threat, every admission. The DA has copies. All the fight seemed to drain out of Wyatt. He slumped against the wall, suddenly looking old. You've destroyed me, he whispered. No. Nolan's voice was ice. You destroyed yourself. I just made sure everyone saw who you really are. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Wyatt looked around wildly, then bolted for the door. In his panic, he didn't see the equipment cart. The collision sent him sprawling. Something cracked, the sound of bone meeting concrete. When the ambulance arrived, the paramedics were direct. Multiple fractures, potential internal injuries. As they loaded Wyatt into the ambulance, one turned to Nolan. He's saying you pushed him. Dozen witnesses say different. Chief Harrison cut in, including security cameras. Man was drunk, tripped over clearly marked equipment. Later, at Rainbow Bakery, Cassidy read the hospital report. Multiple fractures, ruptured testicle requiring emergency surgery. Doctors say the damage is permanent. Karma, Rebecca observed, sipping her coffee. Now, about those divorce settlements. The medical center's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across the waiting room. Nolan sat rigid in an uncomfortable plastic chair, deliberately choosing a seat far from where June huddled near the window. Her pregnancy was more visible now, the slight swell of her belly evident under her loose sweater. Rebecca Graves sat between them, a human barrier in an expertly tailored suit. She checked her watch. Dr. Matthews is running late, probably dealing with Wyatt's latest medical crisis, Cassidy said from beside Nolan. She'd insisted on coming for moral support. Heard he developed complications from the surgery. June's head snapped up. Surgery? What's surgery? You don't know? Cassidy's smile was venomous. Your boyfriend had an accident. He's permanently, let's say, retired from his extracurricular activities. What are you talking about? June's voice shook. I've been trying to call him for weeks. Might be hard to answer from the hospital, Cassidy replied. Especially with the police checking his visitors. Police? June looked frantically at Nolan. What happened to him? Mrs. Parker, Rebecca cut in smoothly. Any questions about Mr. Cross should go through your new lawyer. Oh, wait. She pretended to check her notes. You don't have one anymore, do you? Before June could respond, a nurse appeared. The doctor will see you now. The procedure room was clinically sterile. Dr. Matthews, a gray-haired man with kind eyes, explained the process. The non-invasive prenatal paternity test is very accurate, he said. We'll take blood samples from both potential fathers and the mother. Results usually take 3 to 5 business days. Wyatt's not here, June whispered. Mr. Cross provided his sample yesterday, the doctor replied. Under police supervision at the hospital. I want to see him. That's not possible, Rebecca interjected. The restraining orders are quite clear. June's face crumpled. Restraining orders? Multiple, Cassidy confirmed cheerfully. From several of his other clients? Other? June swayed slightly. No, he said I was special. Different. He said that to all of us, a new voice said from the doorway. Lisa Mitchell stood there, looking uncomfortable in her gym clothes. Sorry I'm late. Thought you should hear this, June. Lisa. June stared at her friend. What are you doing here? Telling the truth. Lisa stepped into the room. Wyatt, he had a system. Targeted women whose husbands traveled for work. Military wives, firefighters' wives, business executives' wives. Made us feel special. Understood. No. June shook her head. It wasn't like that. He said I was different too. Lisa continued. Said I deserved better than my workaholic husband. Sound familiar? Get out, June whispered. He used the same lines on all of us, Lisa pressed on. Same compliments, same secret meetings. Hell, he even took us all to the same restaurant. I said get out. June screamed, then doubled over, clutching her stomach. Mrs. Parker. Dr. Matthews stepped forward in concern. Are you? I'm fine, June gasped. Just do the test. The blood draw was quick and efficient. June kept her face turned away from everyone, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. When it was done, she practically ran from the room. That was cruel, Dr. Matthews observed mildly. Truth often is, Nolan replied. How long until we know? I'll rush the results. 3 days maximum. The doctor hesitated. Mr. Parker, regardless of the outcome, that's still your wife carrying that child. Ex-wife, Nolan corrected. The woman I married died the moment she chose him. Back in the waiting room, Lisa approached Nolan. I'm sorry about June. If I'd known she was one of his targets. Not your fault. Nolan's voice was clipped. He fooled a lot of people. Still, Lisa twisted her hands together. When Cassidy called, told me what happened, I had to come. June should know the truth. How many others? Cassidy asked quietly. That I know of? At least 5 just in the last year. Lisa looked sick. All married. All lonely. All thinking they were special. Perfect targets, Rebecca mused. Husbands away. Lots of free time. Financially stable. Speaking of financial stability, Cassidy cut in. How's June handling that? Saw her car's gone. Had to sell it, Lisa replied. She's staying with her parents now. They're not happy about the situation. They'll be even less happy when the paternity results come back, Rebecca said. Either way, her life's about to get more complicated. Nolan stood abruptly. I need air. Outside, the spring air was crisp. Nolan leaned against his truck, processing. The sight of June's tears had stirred nothing in him, no sympathy, no regret. Just cold satisfaction that justice was being served. You okay? Cassidy asked, following him out. Fine. Nolan straightened his shoulders. Just thinking. About the baby. About consequences. He turned to face her. Every choice has them. June made hers. And if it's yours, then I'll do my duty as a father. Nolan's jaw set firmly. But June will never be anything to me except my child's mother. Cassidy stepped closer, her hand finding his. You're a good man, Nolan Parker. No. He squeezed her hand. Just an honorable one. His phone buzzed a text from Jake, news about Cross. Need to talk. Duty calls. Always. Nolan opened his truck door. Coffee tomorrow? Wouldn't miss it. Cassidy smiled. Someone needs to keep you from brooding. The drive to the fire station was quick. Jake was waiting in the bay, an odd expression on his face. What's wrong? Cross checked himself out of the hospital, Jake said. Against medical advice. He's been drinking, making threats. Against who? Everyone. You, Cassidy, the gym. Jake paused. But mostly about June. Nolan's eyes narrowed. What kind of threats? The kind that makes me glad she's staying with her parents. Jake handed over his phone. Read his social media posts. The posts were unhinged. Rambling accusations. Violent fantasies. Desperate declarations of love mixed with vicious threats. He's spiraling, Nolan observed. That's not all. Jake took his phone back. Remember that cocaine they found on him at the gym? What about it? Turns out he was dealing, not just using. DEA's involved now. Nolan smiled coldly. Perfect. Rebecca's office felt smaller with everyone crowded inside. Nolan sat between Cassidy and Jake, while June huddled alone in a corner chair. Dr. Matthews stood near Rebecca's desk, holding a sealed envelope. Before I reveal the results, the doctor said, I want to remind everyone that this information is confidential. Just open it. June interrupted, her voice rough. She looked worse than ever, dark circles under her eyes. Clothes wrinkled. Dr. Matthews sighed, breaking the seal. He scanned the document, then looked up. The DNA test confirms that Mr. Parker is the biological father. The room went utterly silent. June let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. See? She reached toward Nolan. It's your baby. We can't. Stop. Nolan's voice could have frozen hell. This changes nothing between us. But it's your child, and I'll fulfill my obligations as a father. Nolan turned to Rebecca. What are our options? Rebecca pulled out a document. I've already drafted a custody agreement. Joint legal custody, but primary physical custody with Mr. Parker. What? June shot to her feet. You can't take my baby. Given your current situation, Rebecca continued as if June hadn't spoken. Unemployed, living with your parents, no stable residence of your own. The court will likely favor Mr. Parker's stability. I'll get a job, June protested. Find an apartment. With what money? Rebecca raised an eyebrow. Your parents' savings? The money you got from selling your car? Or perhaps Mr. Cross will help? Her smile was sharp. Oh wait, he's facing federal drug charges. Drug charges? June swayed on her feet. No, that's not. Why it wouldn't. The DA found quite the operation at his apartment. Jake spoke up. Apparently. That's how he could afford all those designer clothes on a gym trainer's salary. June collapsed back into her chair. I don't believe this. Believe it, Cassidy said. The FBI interviewed me yesterday. Apparently, he was using the gym to distribute. All those private training sessions. Mrs. Parker, Dr. Matthews cut in. Your blood pressure is concerning. Perhaps we should continue this another time? No. June's voice was hollow. I need to know. What happens now? Rebecca laid out the terms. Mr. Parker will provide financial support for the child. You'll have visitation rights, supervised at first, given your unstable situation. Once you can demonstrate steady employment and appropriate living conditions, we can revisit the arrangement. And if I fight this, with what resources? Rebecca's voice was clinical. No lawyer, no job, no home of your own. Meanwhile, Mr. Parker has a stable career, an excellent reputation in the community, and a track record of responsibility. Do you really want to waste what little money you have left on a losing battle? June turned to Nolan, tears streaming down her face. Please, I'll do anything. Go to counseling, quit writing, whatever you want. Just don't take my baby. I'm not taking anything, Nolan replied coldly. I'm ensuring my child has stability. Something you couldn't provide while you were spreading your legs for a drug dealer. That's not fair. Fair. Now Nolan did stand, towering over her. Was it fair when you betrayed our marriage? When you threw away 8 years for a worthless piece of trash? When you let him touch you, knowing what it would do to us? I made a mistake. No. Nolan's voice dropped to a whisper. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is burning dinner. What you did was a choice. Every time you went to him, every time you let him inside you, you chose to destroy our marriage. The baby needs its mother. June tried desperately. The baby needs stability, Nolan corrected. Structure, honor, things you know nothing about. Perhaps we should take a break, Dr. Matthews suggested, looking concerned at June's pallor. No need. Nolan turned to Rebecca. Draw up the papers. Full joint custody agreement, but with primary physical custody to me. Standard child support calculations. What about visitation? Rebecca asked. Supervised, as discussed. Once she proves she can be responsible. Nolan's voice was ice. And a morality clause. No overnight male visitors during her parenting time. You bastard, June whispered. No, June. Nolan gathered his jacket. I'm just a man who believes in consequences. You chose this path. Now you walk it. Cassidy stood to follow him, but June's voice stopped them. Her? Really? The bitter ex-wife? That's your type now? Mrs. Parker, Rebecca warned. At least I loved you. June shouted at their backs. She's just using you to get back at Wyatt. Nolan turned slowly. The difference between Cassidy and you, June, is honor. She faced her husband's betrayal with dignity. You. His laugh was cold. You're just another cheap conquest who got caught. In the hallway, Cassidy touched his arm. You okay? Fine. Nolan checked his phone. Need to get to the station. Budget meeting. Nolan. Her voice made him stop. What she said about me using you, don't. He turned, meeting her eyes. We both know what this is. What it isn't. No explanations needed. Cassidy smiled slowly. Dinner tonight? I'm trying a new recipe. I'd like that. As they reached their cars, Nolan's phone buzzed. Jake's message was brief. Cross spotted near June's parents' house. Police notified. Trouble? Cassidy asked, seeing his expression. Maybe. Nolan opened his truck door. Cross is getting desperate. Be careful. Always am. He paused. 7 okay for dinner? Perfect. Cassidy's smile turned wicked. Bring wine. We're celebrating. The paternity test? That. Her eyes sparkled. And Wyatt's arraignment tomorrow. Federal prosecutors don't play nice with drug dealers. Nolan allowed himself a small smile. No, they don't. The local firefighter fundraiser transformed the Red Haven Community Center into a sea of dress uniforms and civilian formal wear. Nolan stood near the podium, his infant son cradled expertly in one arm while he shook hands with donors. At 3 months old, James Parker had his father's dark hair and strong features. He's getting so big, Chief Harrison commented, pausing to chuck the baby under his chin. Looks just like you, Parker. Poor kid, Jake joked. Earning a mock glare from Nolan, Cassidy appeared at Nolan's side, elegant in a navy cocktail dress. Ready to hand him over? The next group of donors is waiting. Here, Nolan carefully transferred James to her arms. The baby immediately snuggled into her familiar embrace. He always settles right down with you. That's because she spoils him, Duke Parker said, approaching with his wife. The retired Marine's bearing was still ramrod straight despite his age. Just like your mother spoiled you. Dad, Nolan clasped his father's hand. Didn't know you were coming. And missed my grandson's first public appearance. Duke smiled proudly. Besides, heard there might be some drama. Wanted to make sure you had backup. Nolan's expression darkened. June? Saw her in the parking lot, Duke confirmed. Looking pretty unstable. Security's been notified. She's not supposed to be here, Cassidy said, instinctively holding James closer. The custody agreement doesn't cover public events. Rebecca Graves cut in, appearing with a drink in hand. Those showing up drunk might interest the judge. Drunk? Nolan's voice sharpened. Very. Rebecca sipped her wine. And she's not alone. Guess who made bail yesterday? Before anyone could respond, a commotion erupted near the entrance. June's voice carried across the room. That's my baby. You can't keep me from my baby. Wyatt Cross stumbled in behind her, looking worse than ever. His designer clothes were replaced by shabby department store wear, his former athletic build gone soft from months of inactivity. June, Nolan's voice cut through the sudden silence. You're making a scene. A scene? June laughed hysterically. You stole my child, turned everyone against me, and I'm making a scene? The custody agreement was your choice, Rebecca reminded her. You signed it, because you left me no choice. June tried to move toward Cassidy and James, but security blocked her path. Look at her, playing mommy with my baby. Mrs. Parker, Chief Harrison stepped forward. This is a private event. Please leave before. Before what? Wyatt slurred, pushing forward. Before you call the cops? Ruin more lives? Your life was ruined the moment you touched my wife, Nolan said coldly. Your wife? Wyatt laughed bitterly. She came to me? They all did, because their perfect husbands were too busy being heroes. And now you're going to prison, Cassidy observed. How heroic. Shut up. Wyatt lunged forward but stumbled, clearly drunk. You think you've won? Think you can just replace us? There's nothing to replace, Nolan said. Just trash to take out. June let out a sob. That's all I am to you now? Trash. You made yourself trash. Duke spoke up, his voice hard. The moment you betrayed your vows. I loved him. June shouted. I still love him. No. Nolan's voice was ice. You loved yourself. Your comfort. Your desires. You never loved me. That's not true. June tried again to reach James, but security held firm. Please, just let me hold my baby. Not like this, Rebecca said firmly. Not drunk at a public event. You're only hurting your chances for expanded visitation. Visitation? Wyatt sneered. That's all you get now, June. Supervised visits with your own kid. Hope I was worth it. Worth it? June turned on him, mascara running down her face. You ruined my life. You said you loved me. I said that to all of them. Wyatt laughed cruelly. You weren't special, June. Just convenient. The slap echoed through the hall. June stood trembling, hands still raised, as Wyatt touched his reddening cheek. Security, Chief Harrison barked. Get them out of here. Don't touch me. June struggled as guards approached. Nolan, please. I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Goodbye, June. Nolan turned his back, taking James from Cassidy. Some betrayals can't be forgiven. As security dragged them out, Wyatt's voice carried back. This isn't over, Parker. Actually, Rebecca smiled, checking her phone. It is. That public disturbance just violated both their bail conditions. They'll be in custody within the hour. The crowd slowly returned to normal, the drama becoming just another piece of Red Haven gossip. Nolan stood with James, Cassidy at his side, watching June's car disappear down the street. You okay? Cassidy asked softly. Fine. Nolan looked down at his son, sleeping peacefully despite the chaos. Just glad it's over. Not quite, Duke said. Still got a lifetime of raising this little warrior ahead of you. He won't do it alone, Cassidy said firmly, her hand finding Nolan's. No, Nolan agreed, squeezing her hand. I won't. The fundraiser continued, a success despite the interruption. Later, as Nolan put James to bed in his nursery, he thought about choices and consequences. June had chosen betrayal, chosen to destroy their marriage for a worthless affair. Now she lived with those choices. Limited visitation, supervised contact, watching another woman help raise her child, but Nolan had made choices too. Chosen honor over forgiveness. Chosen his son's welfare over June's tears. Chosen to build something new with Cassidy, something based on mutual respect and understanding. Standing in the doorway, watching James sleep, Cassidy's arms slipped around his waist. Penny for your thoughts? Just thinking about choices, Nolan said. And their consequences? Regrets? No. He turned to face her. Some betrayals can't be forgiven, but some endings lead to better beginnings. Outside, the lights of Red Haven twinkled under a starlit sky. Somewhere in a jail cell, June and Wyatt faced their consequences. But here, in this moment, Nolan Parker held his son and embraced his future, uncompromised by betrayal, unweakened by false forgiveness. That it was, he decided, exactly the ending they all deserved.